Enter doesn't work. I tried all the modifiers. Okay, anyways.
So I'm
Gotta get headphones. Okay, I just told them I wasn't reading that channel until the stream was over. The private one. Okay, did it connect? No, it didn't connect. I'm not sure what's going on. Let's try using both AirPods. Is my left one out of battery or something? I think that my AirPods case ran out of battery, and then my left one ran out of battery, which I use more. But my right one is at full battery. I'm not sure, but I've plugged in the case. Okay. So my audio correct now. This doesn't matter really because the OBS is set to use the mic regardless of default settings.
just gonna be looking at this post by Elliot, his Curie blog, uh, regarding a new book and Elliot's thoughts about it. And you can get some sense of his thoughts just from the title. Dennis Hackethal, plagiarist. Uh, Elliot's very direct, sort of his modus operandi. So let's see what this says. And by the way, just to be clear, I haven't actually read the book that's being criticized here. I'm just reading Elliot's blog post about it. So, Dennis Hackethal, DH, published the book A Window on Intelligence, The Philosophy of People, Software, and Evolution and Its Implications on March 13th, 2020. The book heavily plagiarizes Elliot Temple, ET, myself, and David Deutsch, DD, who is ET's mentor, colleague, and close friend for over 10 years. DH repeatedly uses their ideas, meaning both of them, DD and ET, without giving credit and tries to present them as DH's own ideas. It's a pretty serious charge. DH came to ET in December of 2018 and initially treated ET like a mentor he was thrilled to have found and be able to learn from. Finally, DH found an expert who knew a ton about the topics DH was interested in and had good ideas instead of bad ones. In DH's opinion, most experts are terrible, but DD and ET have great wisdom. And ET was actually accessible to learn from, unlike most experts. So that sounds like a very happy time. So something obviously went horribly wrong. DH joined ET's discussion forums and got lots of learning help. DH left after 5 months. DH stopped using the forums and stopped speaking to ET or ET's associates. And DH refused to say why. That's around the time DH started writing the book. Later, now that's significant, because you do have to wonder, like, to approach a community in a very excited way, and then you just leave, and then you start writing a book. That's, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and writing a book specifically about the ideas from that community that you no longer want to discuss with that community at all, but you keep reading their blogs and stuff. That's it's weird. Like it's hard to think what would be a good reason to do that. And Dennis did not try to express any good reason about why FI should not be talked to anymore.
It's a sort of thing where it at least raises the question in my mind of like the involvement in the community, and like maybe this was the plan, maybe it was a premeditated thing. I don't know. Like I don't know that. I'm just speculating. But like the thought does occur. Um, so later, posting elsewhere on the internet, DH communicated that he has a hateful attitude towards ET and ET's associates, even though DH still seems to be a huge fan of their ideas, and even filled his book with their ideas, which is an interesting state to be in. Despite cutting contact, DH continued reading ET's writing. The below post goes over some examples of how DH's book plagiarizes ET and DD, and also does some copyright infringement. This is a sort of egregious, extensive plagiarism that gets people expelled from universities. It's not just a little bit. The book should never have been published and should be withdrawn from the market. Even though the book has a bunch of ET's ideas in it, DH provided ET no opportunity to comment before the book was published, did not provide a courtesy copy to ET, and didn't even notify ET about the book's existence after publication. Yeah, I'm sure that was just an accidental oversight, right? Sarcasm. This is after DH has, I think that's supposed to be had. This is after DH
Oh yeah, Justin reported that to me while he was making the video, and I already fixed it.
Had personal tutoring sessions to learn from ET. Discussed. Yeah, I think I'm gonna let Elliot know about that. All right, I paused the video. I let Elliot know, and he already fixed it, so that's cool. This is after DH had personal tutoring sessions to learn from ET, discussed on ET's forums and his chat rooms, and more. He directly learned
Oh, Justin, refresh the page. It's already fixed.
material from ET, put it in the book, and didn't even notify ET. In addition to not giving credit in the book. So yeah, that's like extreme bad faith. Despite relying so much.
Right, he could have discussed the plagiarism with me before the book came out, so he wouldn't be under like time pressure in the discussion. Like he complained that I rushed him when I wanted to talk about it, but that's because the book was already out and being sold. If he'd brought up the issue before the book was out, then he could have taken his time discussing it with me. And he even admits that he knew the book had a bunch of problems when he talked to me. But then he decided not to do anything about them, and yeah, it gets ridiculous.
So much on ET's and DT's ideas, DH still introduces a bunch of his own mistakes. Of course he did, because it's not like he was engaged in, rational truth-seeking error correction. So of course he's going to muddle it up. And as Elliot says, the book may alienate readers from the ideas in addition to stealing credit, because yeah, they're getting this muddled, more confused, less clear, less refined version of it. Part of the problem is DH's incompetence. He has no business writing a book. He doesn't know how to cite things. That's true. And Elliot gets into that. He screws up badly when speaking about some Richard Dawkins material. He flames Nick Bostrom inappropriately. He gives DD credit in a few places, often inadequately, but then gives zero credit to DD in the majority of cases. However, it's not just incompetence. DH's intentional malice is clear because, for example, ET's name literally isn't in the book even once, even though it's packed with ET's ideas. Details for all these points are covered below. DH's response to the issue is also covered below.
Yeah, the bad faith is so blatant. Like, it's hard to tell how much with the DD plagiarism is bad faith versus incompetence. Because he seems really incompetent, but also it's so bad that it seems like there's some bad faith and dishonesty too. But it's mixed. And someone could read the book and claim it was just incompetence. He did cite DD sometimes. He did use DD's name. He just doesn't know how to do scholarship and not plagiarize. But with the case of me, there's no case where it was good faith. He intentionally left my name out of the book in every single case. Even when he linked to my website 3 times, he did not use my name once. That was 100% on purpose, out of just spite, malice, or something.
He admits he screwed up and expresses his confidence that the book has lots of plagiarism, which is pretty damning. DH says he'll fix the plagiarism if ET finds it for him, but then immediately breaks his word and refuses to even read documentation of the problems that he just requested. As unbelievable as this is, it's all documented below since DH put it in writing.
Yeah, his responses are ridiculous, and they show how stupid he is. Because, like, he must have known he was writing for publication when he spoke to me about plagiarism. And he literally refused to read my complaint about the plagiarism and admitted he didn't read it and said on purpose that he wouldn't read it. Like, does he not realize that makes him look bad? That he's not only a plagiarist, but will not read the explanation of his plagiarism? Like, that's just ridiculous. He looks like an idiot, a buffoon. Plus, it was right after he asked me for details of the plagiarism to be sent all at once as a group instead of one by one. And then his reason for not reading it is it was too long. So he's just contradicting himself, or like, I don't know, like, does he have memory loss? I don't really think it's memory loss. I think it's people forget things all the time, even though their brain hardware is not faulty. Like, they don't reread what they said in discussions, and they don't keep track of it well. They keep track of like what I meant instead of what I said, sort of, but like a really biased version of what they meant. So if the thing you remember is a really biased version of what you meant to communicate instead of what you actually communicated, then it results in things where it looks like you totally forgot what you said. But it's because you chose to remember something else on purpose. Like, remembering your actual words was not your goal.
As a likely further response, this website was DOS as a denial of service attack, sent extra traffic to break the website, so pages download. Shortly after,
Yeah, convenient memory is a very different issue than like real forgetting where you have Alzheimer's or something.
saw a draft of this blog post, but before it was posted. Notice, by the way, Elliot, giving the courtesy of sharing the post, this critical post in the first place, which, given the circumstances, I mean, it would be understandable if Elliot hadn't extended that courtesy, given the utter lack of courtesy and bad faith by DH, but Elliot did. That's understandable. So speaking of the DOS, whoever did this is a criminal, and the timing of the DOS seems unlikely to be a coincidence. The DOS was presumably done by DH or someone he told about his plagiarism. I don't recall this website ever being intentionally DOS before, while this DOS was clearly intentional. And it's not just, for example, a web spider ignoring robots.txt. Right? That would be a hell of a coincidence where the first clearly intentional DOS attack happens like, right after this blog post is made available to somebody who doesn't like it, isn't going to like it.
Yes, and before the blog post was public, so you can't just say, well, you have a lot of blog readers, it was one of them.
For security reasons, I won't provide technical details. I'll just say the attack quickly made the website stop loading for anyone. If DH isn't involved in this crime, he should provide the evidence he has about the crime, such as who he told about the plagiarism issue, and thereby provided motive to, who contacted DH.
Yeah, literally all the people in the Forest Jams group so far will not provide... They won't even tell me whether the plagiarism was discussed there or not. They just will not provide info about a federal crime because it's bad faith. Like, there's just no way around blatant bad faith by not only Dennis, but all of the group's leaders and all of its members that I have any contact with or who have seen this.
To DH about this. If DH will help catch the criminal, all civilized people should shun him even more than they should for his plagiarism. Note as context that DH has a recent history of breaking laws associated with criminals and lying in defense of criminals. And that's, yeah, this.
None of that is like even disputed. Like they don't argue their case, they don't defend themselves. It's all just documented facts that they haven't even tried to dispute, presumably because they can't.
NDB stuff is really wild. You should, if you haven't read that, somebody other is not a fan of Elliot and has.
But to summarize very briefly, the other stuff involves like literally hundreds of harassing comments on my blog, as well as doxing, spamming, and threatening people, and not just me, other FI people too.
Some real issues. No, I haven't read much of DH's book and don't plan to. I just came to a few parts and searched for keywords. There are probably many other issues which I don't discuss here. My impression from skimming was that there were a bunch more problem issues that I didn't read more about. The parts I comment on were easy to find fast.
Should be problematic issues, I think. I guess I'll fix that. Oh, what's the difference? Which one's higher? Okay, I'll take a look in a sec. Problem issue. Problematic.
Find fast. I did look at all instances of DD's name. 20, ET's name 0, and ET's website 3.
Okay, voice boost is already on.
So I know what credit was given to them. I didn't check if other people at Call Piper were plagiarized or not. The below is only lightly edited because it's good enough to communicate the info, and I want to get back to educational writing and philosophy research ASAP. Fair enough. By the way, I would normally read something like this in reader mode in Safari, but reader mode doesn't work well with these colored backgrounds. So yellow quotes like this are from DH's book. Criterion of universality. X is universal Y. If it can do all the Z's, all the other Y's can do. This sentence comes from when ET was teaching DH what universality is. One part of the educational help DH got was a discussion involving 20 emails. That may sound like a lot to people, but I mean, such discussions are common on FI lists, or even much longer. That's my little side comment there. In it, ET wrote, X.
20 emails is pretty normal on FI, but yeah, you're louder because I turned you up off screen. But 20 emails, well, it's pretty common FI. It's like it's a lot of help to be plagiarizing. Like it's not something he just forgets. Like it was a significant amount of discussion. A lot of words were said to him. And it's not a normal amount of discussion for non-FI people like Dennis. Like that's unusual for him to have that much discussion about something. Also, this particular issue we talked about on voice for a while.
X is universal Y if it can do any Z that any other Y can do. I noticed there's a change there, by the way. This is where in Elliot's formulation, he's talking about any Z, any other Y, whereas with DH, he's talking about all the Z's and all the other Y's, which at least introduces some ambiguity. It's less precise and less clear, because if you say my Mac can run any Mac program, then that could be true and reasonable, meaning like any given program you can run it. If you say my Mac can run all of the Mac programs, then it's like, well, maybe you're saying you could run them all at the same time or something. So it's a little like there's some meaning change there potentially. So Elliot continues. DH had trouble understanding. He wrote, for example, I think I'm still confused about universality. I still don't know how I feel about this period convention, by the way. But after further educational efforts by...
Oh yeah, I know the double period is like awkward, but I've been doing it sometimes because it's more precise. Like you need a period for the sentence and you need a period inside the quotes for the quoted thing. Like I really dislike the convention where you treat the period inside the quote as a normal period in the text in general, or commas as well. Like you're putting something in the quote that's not actually part of the quote. But if you do it the other way and you only put it outside, then you're omitting the fact that there's a period inside the quote. So that's why I have both.
exceptional efforts by ET. DH understood the idea enough to copy that sentence into his book and plagiarize the topic in general. Just to think about it. The matter of fact, I mean, I'm not disagreeing. It's very blunt. IET recognized the sentence immediately when I saw it. It was a major topic I educated DH about. The sentence is slightly distinctive. This isn't plausibly an accident, right? Yeah, that's pretty much a lift with some changes, with some like minor changes. But here's another example of the plagiarism related to universality. Whichever way one chooses to define domains in which to look for universality, it is crucial to pick useful qualifiers and determine meaningful domains. This is an important idea, which is closely related to the criterion of universality above, that ET had to explain to DH multiple times before DH finally understood it. And the idea is original to ET, not common knowledge, but no credit is given. Right, plagiarism and copyright. Plagiarism is taking credit for ideas or writing that isn't yours. Plagiarism is DH's main offense. It's the thing that gets people flunked out of university classes for being unethical. Copyright protects the specific form of work, but not the ideas or concepts. It's the thing that gets lots of YouTube videos taken down and people get sued over it. It's a well-known law and widespread use. So DH could write about a criterion of universality in his own words, and it would only be plagiarism if he didn't give credit, but not copyright infringement. When he uses ET's words in his book without quoting them or giving credit, then it's copyright infringement. If by breaking the law, DH has to write his own words instead of borrowing sentences that ET wrote. The slight rewordings don't make it okay. You can get around copyright that easily. That's true.
Yeah, Dennis, by the way, clearly does not know this when he wrote to me as a fix for this particular passage. See, he admitted that this one was bad, the criterion of universality one. He admitted was bad before he refused to read anything else I said. But then as his proposed fix was to add a footnote to it. You cannot fix copyright infringement, like copying someone's words, by adding a footnote and then saying that these are Elliot's words, because you'd still have it in the text as a non-quote. Like, you have to put quote marks around it, and then you can have a footnote that says where you got it, so people know it's not your words. But you can't just keep using my words, not in quotes, and think having an endnote will solve it. You have to present it in the text as something Elliot said. Endnotes are for, like, extra details, like the exact source of where you got it. But yeah, you just giving credit doesn't make it okay to use someone else's words without actually marking them as a quote.
Note that copyright has an exception called fair use. If DH had quoted ET's sentence and said ET wrote it, then it would be a copyright violation, even without ET's permission to use a sentence. Right? Yeah, you don't need to. It's often considered best practice if you ask for permission, but it's not required. Fair use allows quoting a little bit of someone's writing for example, critical commentary or educational purposes, but it doesn't allow taking credit for other people's work. Yeah, and this was
Right. So there's a bunch of exceptions to copyright called fair use, where there's ways you can quote sections of what people said in order to respond to them, to criticize, to do news reporting, to educate people, etc. But plagiarism is not on the list of exceptions to copyright. It's not a fair use.
This was no citation was given, no quotation was indicated. This was not fair use.
It's still kind of quiet for you guys, isn't it? I can turn myself down a little more, but I don't know why the video is so quiet. It's yeah, it's maxed there. And it's loud enough in my ear. Is it good enough? I'll turn myself down a little more even.
Fair use. This was unfair use. Copy question and plagiarized chapter. It is essential to ask, hard to vary given what constraint. I don't know where the yellow is.
Oh, I remember Justin said something how he forgot to do volume adjustment, so it's probably just his video is really low.
DH. Those quote marks indicate dialogue or speech, not a quote from another author. But it's actually an exact quote from me without credit. That's interesting. That DH gave the quote, but not the source. And right.
I mean, I don't think those quote marks were there to indicate it was a quote of someone. I think they're there, like, he's like, it's essential to ask, and then he says quote. So I think he's just asked this question, like, it makes sense to put quotes there if it's not a quote. So I think the quotes just have nothing to do with the fact that he borrowed that sentence.
Right. It would without any source indicators, it just looks like a dialogue or speech, or it essentially asks the question, and then yeah, you're saying what question, but it's not. That's this doesn't mean another person said it, but Elliot actually.
Hey, wait. Dennis does the question mark inside quote period after quote. He's copying my like minor weird grammar writing style that no one else does too. Really? I'm gonna check the book real quick just to make sure that wasn't like a typo or something. Oh, it's literally on screen right now. Yep, there it is. Question mark. He reads my recent stuff, right? Like, he's actively reading my recent stuff, it seems like. He's copying this tiny little detail that I do. That's, like, very unusual. Like, Justin even commented about how weird it was, as one of my, like, fans who follows my stuff. And I only started doing this recently, but I did it extensively in one of my recent long posts. And now we see it in Dennis's book, although not consistently, because this is an end of sentence, right? This is a whole sentence. Right, and then we want is a new sentence. So he did not put the period here, so he's not doing it consistently. He's not a good editor. I'm curious though, like, let's just search for quote marks. Oh shit, I got flat quotes. Right, well, this will do it. These are normal. Okay, he just copied my weird thing in one single place? Question mark? Yeah, he's just doing it normal in general. Like, he's doing it the normal way I don't like, the US convention. The UK does it the better way in general, which is the, you put the punctuation after the quote mark. But the US puts it inside, which I think is terrible. Because you're putting something that's not part of the quote inside the quote marks, so I really don't like that. Like this, you see how there's a comma inside the quote marks? The comma is for the sentence, for the external sentence. So in the UK, they do it this way. Which is also what I would do. I only use double punctuation when you actually need the punctuation inside and outside. But in this case, you only need the punctuation outside for the overall sentence. The term in the text instruction from without does not require any punctuation, so you should just do it this way, which is the UK way. But the US way, which Dennis has used, is like this. The inside, so the comma is in the wrong place because the comma is for the overall sentence, and then he puts the comma inside the quotes. It's a very weird, dumb convention, in my opinion. So the way I write usually matches the UK convention, but sometimes it involves having two punctuation marks for extra clarity. Anyway, so Dennis is using the US convention. He just happened to not use it in that one spot I was looking at for some reason. Maybe he deals with question marks weirdly. Oh, he fucking does. Look at this. Question mark, quote, comma, question mark, quote, comma, question mark, quote, period. So whenever it's a question mark, he does it different, not consistently. Here he doesn't. Oh, this one isn't. This isn't a new sentence afterwards. Yeah, so he treats question marks inside quotes as not being punctuation for the outer sentence, but periods and commas inside quotes are punctuation for the outer sentence. It's quite bizarre. That's not a convention. It's not a thing. No one does that, and it doesn't make sense. Like, why treat question marks especially? Anyway, doesn't matter. And I don't want to really talk about his book much on stream. Like, I don't want to give him constructive feedback on it. He didn't earn it. That was fine. That's just a grammar thing. He's not gonna like appreciate it. But I don't want to talk about the content of the book in general.
Actually said it. There's something weird about that just strikes me as really weird, this particular example, where there's sort of an acknowledgement that it was said, but not really given the context. Like it's like a half acknowledgement. It's very strange.
I think it's just a zero acknowledgement. Like, as we saw when I was skimming, he just has questions in quotes a lot in the book. Like, who should rule is in quotes. How can we detect and correct errors is in quotes. Which is fine, that's reasonable. So that's why that thing is in quotes. It just has nothing to do with it being a quote. He does this all the time.
I wrote it here and more prominently in this blog post where I was discussing with Bruce Nielsen, an associate of DH who was named in the acknowledgements. Even if I hadn't told this directly to DH's associate, we know DH kept reading my blog even after he stopped discussing with me because he uses later material from my blog in his book. And that's interesting as well.
It's possible that the question mark quote and then a comma or period thing is from me, but it's hard to tell. Because it's like a weird echo of something I was doing recently, and it's very bizarre.
Like that sort of, to come to a community, be, interested for a while, say it's great, and then you leave, you start writing a book. You don't really say exactly what the issue is with leaving. You start writing a book, and you keep going back to the well of the person who you were talking about ideas with to get more ideas. Even lifting, exact quotes. That's if this whole course of action wasn't premeditated from the beginning, then it at least shows bad faith to to keep going back to the well and using ideas and drawing inspiration from somebody you don't even mention their name, or that you're quoting them, or stealing a bunch of their stuff. Much of the rest of the chapter is paraphrasing ET without credit, such as this sentence. We want an implementation to be hard to vary while still solving the problems it purports to solve. So let's emphasize that, I think. Is that emphasis in the original? I'm going to ask, actually. All right, so the emphasis is in the original. ET has said things like this many times, for example, in the 2011 formulation on the Fabric of Reality email group. Knowledge is information that is hard to vary while solving the problem, that it's designed or adapted to solve equally well or better. Although DH's phrasing is based on ET's writing, much of this concept was originated by DD. DD isn't credited for it either. Yeah. The chapter has one footnote about one specific idea. First came across the idea of using multiplication as an example of knowledge in computer programs here. And you can see this starts off as an archive link, but it's to Elliot's website, which is in turn based on the concept of structural epistemology, which goes back to David Deutsch.
I can buff it. Let's go.
David Deutsch and Elliot Wolf.
YouTube is under higher load lately from the whole coronavirus, people staying home and watching Netflix and YouTube all day thing. They actually default to lower quality than they used to if you leave it on auto. You have to like manually pump up the quality more than you used to have to. I read something about it. You can still get good quality if you select it yourself. But I read that in a lot of cases they were auto defaulting to 720p to save bandwidth.
DH doesn't give any credit in the main text and doesn't give my name or direct link to my website. And DH understates how much material he got from ET's posts, of which there are three other main ones on the same topic that ET emailed to DH by DH's request in late 2018. The posts supplemented a discussion where ET taught DH about it verbally.
You guys should have the link. I only linked Justin's video. And yeah, my website is being DDoSed, hence that interstitial from Cloudflare to protect it. Anyway, there's the Dennis plagiarist thing.
With just this one site and no mention of ET's name, DH spends most of chapter 3 explaining ET's work, some of which, as ET has acknowledged, DD helped with or originated. DH doesn't credit DD either. So yeah, he spends most of the chapter. I mean, he's sort of laundering other people's, or maybe that's not the right word, but he's passing off other people's intellectual work product. DH is passing off other people's work as his own, it seems like, in an ongoing and systematic way.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about this particular case? It's the structural epistemology stuff. He emailed me like before he hated me or whatever it is, and he asked permission to use that in a paper, which I took as permission to use it with credit just at all instead of can't use it whatsoever. So I was like, sure. Like it's public blog post, of course you can put it in a paper. Like I didn't even think of credit as an issue. But he was just asking permission to like even talk about it and use the examples. So his attitude changed in some sort of large way because now he has a whole chapter on it. And he doesn't want to give credit. Whereas, yeah, he emailed me for permission just to like even talk about my idea in the past. I don't know. What the fuck is up with him?
DH borrows extensively from ET's way of teaching and explaining these issues for a whole chapter, and provides just one endnote. The fact that it's an endnote is significant because a lot of people don't even read the endnotes.
Yeah, he doesn't have footnotes in the book. They're all endnotes. And yeah, giving credit in endnotes isn't adequate. People will just read the book, skip every endnote, and have no idea that you're plagiarizing stuff because it's not their job to check the endnotes. You should not have to check an endnote to know the source of ideas. Endnotes tell you like what book is it in, what chapter is it in, like which edition of the book, like how do I look this up? Endnotes are for that. But the body text is supposed to tell you when an idea comes from a different author and what their name is. So you know that it's from a different person, not the author of the book you're currently reading. And then the endnotes have like optional info. It's pretty simple, but Dennis clearly doesn't know it.
And provides just one endnote mentioning where he got the general idea of using multiplication as an example. But ET didn't just mention multiplication, would be a nice example. ET gave examples and showed how to use them to explain some big ideas. And DH is plagiarizing all that with, as usual, some added errors mixed in and some key ideas omitted.
And like lots of the endnotes, you can't even know what type of endnote they are without checking. If you have a quote in quotes and then an endnote and you don't say who it's from, it's bad, but it's not nearly as bad because readers can see it's a quote from somewhere. And then they can check the endnote if they want to know where it's from. So they know that it's not Dennis's idea if you see a quote and then an endnote. But what Dennis does all the time is no quote and then an endnote. And then you have no idea if the endnote is like an additional point about the issue that he brought up as like a side note or a tangent in the endnote, or if it's an attribution. There's no way to tell without checking the endnote that it even is an attribution. Someone just read my newsletter. I'm going to send it. Here we go. Yeah. Cool.
So it's screwed up, but still easily recognizable as based on ET's work. It's like a hack job of a Howard work building. Other ET endnotes. The easiest way to find more plagiarism of ET is to check the endnotes. Well, at least they were useful for something. There are two more, which indirectly reference ET's website.
Yeah, that I found that funny. Like because I didn't want to read the book, I just skimmed around. But the easiest way to find him plagiarizing me was literally to search for my website, find it in 3 endnotes, and then go to whatever text those endnotes were for. And then I found parts that weren't okay. I got an autoresponder response from my newsletter. Okay, cool. Newsletter sent. What is this? I think so. It would depend on how you define your terms, probably, but sounds right. Is there like a disagreement or an issue or regarding this information processing thing?
Website. Well, refusing to give his name. First, Hans Haas, the human animal, is quoted on, right? You'd never know from this endnote that ET has made multiple videos about this specific topic and had multiple discussions about it. ET's educational material is where and how DH learned what to say about the Hans Haas quotes he borrowed from ET's blog post. Just like DH was only able to partially understand universality due to ET's educational efforts for which no credit was given. In fact, far from just not giving credit, is just engaged in wholesale intellectual theft. That's my little comment at the end there. Hans Haas, I hope I'm saying that right, gets his name in the main text of the book too, not just in the note as is appropriate, but ET's name isn't in the book once. I'm sure it was unintentional omission. Sarcasm. The whole section on animal learning is heavily based on the ideas of ET and DD, including ET's category of blog posts about animal intelligence. ET has also made several videos on the topic, had several debates, and had many earlier discussions about it on the email forums. They are distinctive ideas which DH plagiarized. We can explain this easily enough, we can explain this easily and well through the existence of an inborn pathfinding algorithm, whose results just need to be stored in memory for later retrieval, says DH. DH got this specifically from ET. DH didn't know it until ET taught it to him personally.
Yeah, I literally discussed that with him in voice. That's where he got that. He did not know it. I had to explain it to him. And if he denies that, I will post the recording online. But I don't think he'll deny it.
Before learning from ET, DH actually had conventional mainstream views about animal intelligence. No credit is given for radically changing DH's conclusions on these matters, and teaching him the entire point of view is writing the book. All right, the last endnote related to ET is, as far as I'm aware, the notion of such a meta-algorithm was first introduced in the form of a failsafe, but its significance underestimated here. There's a link to Elliot. This includes an unargued, unexplained, unreasonable claim that Elliot, or that ET, made a mistake. ET's extensive knowledge of an obscure subject is not evidence that ET underestimates it. ET's bringing up something original, as DH believes it to be, is not evidence that he doesn't realize it's significant. Let me just pop over to this link.
Yeah, this jab was like weird. He's just accusing me of underestimating something. He didn't talk with me about it. Like, where is the evidence that I underestimated it? It's very condescending out of nowhere for no reason.
Right, I remember this.
And it's fucking passive voice. Its significance is underestimated. That is, it's not saying that a subject, like a person like Elliot, underestimated the significance. It's a way to avoid saying my name and to be extra condescending.
I remember this discussion. So, yeah. So the rat said, I'm talking about dolphins going insane and committing suicide in captivity. And Elliot said, it sounds like algorithm bugs. And also plenty of those is probably an evolutionary useful thing in some scenarios, like a failsafe, where it tries to stop repeating the same actions that aren't working. Right, so it might help sometimes, but maybe not in the captivity situation. Only after 30 or 40 repetitions will the wasp finally drive the caterpillar into its nest without further inspection. Even bigger wasps have failsafes where they change behavior after 30 to 40 repetitions. So yeah, he's just sort of bringing. Elliot introduces the failsafe idea to address this issue, to explain some animal behavior, and then he's not launching into a general discussion of all his knowledge on the topic. He's just addressing a specific question that came up. Right, Elliot's extensive knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that I brought up enough of it to answer the thing in the discussion does not mean I don't know other things. Like, that's just stupid.
Which of a obscure subject is not evidence that he underestimates it. Yeah, it's just Well, how I read the endnote here is just basically DH wants to signal that he's smarter than Elliot, and Elliot brought up this thing.
Yeah, the endnote is trying to say this source doesn't really know everything. I'm telling you a lot more that the source doesn't know. Like he's trying to say he's adding a lot to the source, which just makes the plagiarism like more egregious and dishonest and bad faith.
Brought up this thing, but DH realized the true significance. And I'm trusting Elliot that this isn't and also just the form. Like if you make this comment in an endnote, and you probably haven't explained this elsewhere. So yeah, that's lame. Again, ET's name isn't given, and this is only an endnote, so a reader could easily never realize that even this little bit of partial credit was given.
Yeah, that endnote is all there is. I searched my name in the book. I searched my websites, etc. And I also for each of the endnotes that had my website, I searched for the number of the endnote until I found it in the book, and then I looked through that section to see what he said.
Given. DH uses the term meta-algorithm 95 times in the book, inspired by ET and no one else, according.
But yeah, just randomly skimming around a bit, I found other issues, like the Feynman part. Like, they're just in the golden rice part. They're just fucking everywhere. Like, you can just open to a random page, and you'll probably find an issue pretty fast looking around.
DH's account, but doesn't give ET meaningful credit. I actually think DH is confused about the issue and its originality. It's already in widespread use by programmers, which DH apparently hasn't noticed. But certain applications of it by animals, maybe 2 animals. All right, so it was 2 animals. Adding some typo correcting value here. Original to DG and ET, but I won't get into it more. Note that the link here goes to a post ET wrote in November 2009, over 6 months after DH had stopped speaking to ET without explanation. It shows DH was still reading ET's work and using it for his book, including specifically ET's post relating to animal intelligence. Yeah, this is such a bad faith thing. Yeah. Learn from somebody, ask some questions, you hang out for a while, then you leave, start writing a book, use their stuff, use their new stuff, their like latest stuff, and don't give any credit. It's so nasty. Another plagiarism example is DH's discussion of golden rice and the precautionary principle. Is it a coincidence that ET wrote about golden rice and the precautionary principle also in November 2009 while DH was reading ET's work and writing the book? That ET post also explains the non-standard view of Pascal's wager, and then DH writes something similar about Pascal's wager in another part of the book. DH did change it by incorrectly lowercasing the W in wager, even though it's a proper noun. Oh man.
He's just not much of a writer. Like, he doesn't understand what proper nouns are.
Noted a few topics discussed which are distinctively associated with DD. Then I searched for every time DD's name was used to give DD credit, subtracting.
It's that or he got it off Wikipedia, because I was checking what other people do. So look, if you search for Pascal's wager, and then you look at Wikipedia, you see Pascal's wager with the lowercase, right? So it's possible he Googled it, and then Wikipedia tricked him. But this is not Wikipedia's opinion. Wikipedia knows it's a proper noun. You can see that right here. With the capital, it's just literally Wikipedia's software, like, dealing with the title is, I think that's the problem. Like, I think it just doesn't handle proper nouns correctly. Actually, I mean, I don't know that. But, like, here you see it again. But then in the well, okay, here again, it's bad. It's like the very first time, but sometimes they actually uppercase wager. Wait. Like, right next to each other, like, this one's capitalized. Oh, this one's the beginning of a sentence. Okay. Mostly it's lowercase on Wikipedia. Maybe it's not software. Maybe they just don't know what they're doing. But then, like, you see down here, all these links have it capitalized. But this one right here is capitalized, like, and this one right here. So, like, right near the beginning, someone knew it's supposed to be a Oh, wait, this one's not. I don't know how I missaw that. But this one is. And, like, this is weird. Look at this inconsistency. So, like, this is only capitalized the first word. So you see, like, here, only the first word is capitalized, like it's a normal sentence. And then this one's in title case. It's not just that wager is capitalized, they capitalize applied, climate, and change. Whereas none of these do that. None of these other ones do that. Just this one specific one capitalizes extra words. Yeah, Wikipedia is bad for bad at capitalization. They're not consistent. They don't know what they're doing. But I know Wikipedia has issues with how their software affects article titles and stuff. Like, I've run into that before. But anyways, other sites that aren't Wikipedia know that it's a proper noun. Like the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy is written by people who know enough about writing to know what proper nouns are. And in general, know how citations work. Which we'll get to that later. Like, Dennis cannot cite his own works correctly, or like Popper essays, or like even when he gives a cite, he gives it wrong. So he doesn't use so there's citation formats that you can look up, and there are tools that will output citations in various different formats to make it easy for you. He uses none of that and then does it completely wrong. to the point that you could not look it up from the information he gave. Like, he doesn't give adequate information to find the thing that he's citing, which is like breaking the very purpose of the main purpose of citations, is this is where I got it, and now you could look it up. And if he doesn't give you enough information for that, it's just ridiculous.
Subtracting the times DD got credit from the list, the rest are plagiarism. Topics plagiarized from DD include problems are soluble, problems are inevitable, various universality stuff, including the jumped universality, using DD's exact phrase jumped universality 7 times, reach, and criteria for reality. These are major ideas from DD.
These are, like, I just skimmed a little bit. Like, I did not try at all hard to find these things. I did a couple word searches, like I searched on inevitable and jump. Some of these I just ran into while skimming. Like, they're just very recognizable DD ideas. And they aren't credited.
Ideas from DD's books, especially the beginning of Infinite. Yeah, this is pretty flagrant. They are highly original and distinctive ideas which DH gives 0 credit for. DH's book title, A Window on Intelligence, is also based on DD's chapter title, A Window on Infinity, in BOI without credit. Yeah. It's interesting, though. Like, he at least gave DD, I mean, he at least acknowledged DD's existence, which is more, I think, can be said for how he treated Elliot. Like, partial.
Yeah, like there's one thing in the introduction where he says that he's gonna like talk about DD's epistemology ideas, but then when he actually does it, it's largely without mentioning DD's name. A couple places there's just a footnote or endnote with no explanation that then like mentions BOI. But DD's like rarely mentioned in the text.
Incomplete, source citing and scholarship is not great, but it's better than absolutely nothing. Topics where DD got some credit include structural epistemology, hard to vary, universal explainer, static and dynamic means, church Turing Deutsch principle, and if you can't program it, you haven't understood it. Also, the contrast shows more intentionality in the treatment of Elliot, because like we could say maybe that
Right, I don't get treated the same as everyone else. It's really blatant if you compare just in general. Like, he often mentions like Popper or Bostrom or other people in the text at least once when he's bringing up their stuff. Like Richard Dawkins gets mentioned. He's intentionally not using my name. He's just immoral.
The treatment of DD. Elliot mentioned this earlier. What I was going to say, DD gets some credit, maybe inadequate, but there's something. But Elliot's not even mentioned once. He just gets a few archive.org links. So if we treat the treatment of DD as like the as like what DH can do when he's ineffectively trying to do just cite his sources, to cite other people's ideas, then any departure that's like way worse than that it shows a conscious intent, because we can say, well, he knows how to do half-assed citation, mentioning somebody's name at least part of the time. It's not just that he's like never thinks of it, So then how do you explain the treatment of Elliot? Well, he's just being a bad actor. If presumably because of the extensiveness of it, because if you're writing a book and you want to boost your like prestige level or whatever, as an original thinker, you can't then really for that project, you can't then really say, oh, and I got this idea and this idea and this idea from Joe Blow or DD or ET, because then that's not.
Yeah, his book is too full of other people's ideas to the point that if he actually cited them all correctly, people reading the book would get the impression that Dennis hadn't said much himself. So that's why he had to plagiarize, because his book was... He did not want to present his book as a literature survey. He wanted to present himself as an original thinker. But it was a literature survey. It's full of other people's ideas. So to present the literature survey as not a literature survey, it requires dishonesty and plagiarism.
Because then that's not as impressive. Because if you're playing that game, you want to be original and impressive, and people say, "Oh, he's so clever, and he comes up with this stuff," and people talk about cocktail parties or whatever. But if you cite things with a more of a rigor and scholarly integrity, and you're not actually adding anything, then that becomes pretty clear. If you're just sort of regurgitating other people's ideas, which I mean, people do that, and like a lot of university papers are just regurgitations, and you can get an A, basically doing that in a lot of cases. But he wanted to put out wanted to put out a book, and and come off like he has some original contributions to make. So then he has to play this game where he's hiding the extent to which he's relying on other thinkers for the stuff that he wants to take credit for. When somebody else's name is in the idea you're discussing, that makes it a little difficult to pull that game. But
oh, well, weirdly, Deutsch's name is not in it. Dennis just added that. At least the way Deutsch talks about it in the beginning of Infinity, it's the church Turing thesis. I talk about this. Or was it? No. Conjecture. Church Turing conjecture. See, it's right here. So this is what David uses in BOI, church Turing conjecture, and Dennis changed it for some reason to church Turing Deutsch principle. I don't know why. But so Dennis could have talked about it without putting Deutsch's name in it. He wasn't actually required to. It's not like Turing, where he couldn't really have talked about it while avoiding Turing's name.
And also if they're high profile, because other people reading your thing will have read at least a summary or a book review of other people's stuff. So if they're like if the person you're drawing on is a high profile thinker, then it's going to be more difficult to deceive people. But if they're just if they just have like a blog or something, and even if it's I'm not Elliot has more than just a blog, but like I think you know what I'm saying. Like if they're not a high fame level, let's put it that way. If their fame level is much more modest and most people wouldn't have heard of them, then you can just if you're unethical, then I guess you can just go to town. All right, so I think it was here. Topics where DD got some credit include structural epistemology, hard to vary, universal explainer, static and dynamic names, church Turing Deutsch principle, and if you can't program it, you haven't understood. In the first three of those 6 cases, DD's name only appears in an endnote. That's interesting. Not in the main text of the book. So most readers still won't know it's DD's idea, right? Because I mean, most people that buy the book won't finish it. Most people that finish it won't read the endnotes.
Yeah, so the issues where David gets his name in the book, like in the main text, are static and dynamic memes, search Turing Deutsch principle, which is it doesn't introduce it as Deutsch's idea, and it doesn't say it's the same Deutsch. It's just there, but there's no introduction that David Deutsch has anything to do with it. It's just in the name, not in the text. And then the if you can't program it, you haven't understood it thing, David gets credit by name.
Most people that read some of the endnotes will definitely not read all.
Like that's so little, and the book, like by far the biggest single information source for Dennis's book is the beginning of infinity. He uses a ton of ideas from BOI.
Not read all the endnotes. So yeah, it's also there's no text crediting DD for the Turing Deutsch principle. It's just implied by DD's name being the principal's name. Yeah, Deutsch is a pretty common name. There's no.
By the way, BOI gets cited like several times, but Fabric doesn't at all. Fabric, I'll show you. By the way, he copies things like terminology section, summary. That's just like he's copying the format of BOI without credit. Which, like, any one thing like that you could get away with, and it's like not necessarily bad. Like, it's not like having a terminology section and then a summary at the end of every chapter is like super original. If the book was like completely fine other than that one thing, I'd say just completely let it pass. It's fine. When you add up all the different things, you see this huge pattern. So like I think that this is a notable thing that adds to the pattern, that he's copying the BOI format without credit. Anyways, search for Fabric, and there's one hit right here. That's it. This is the bibliography. This is not an endnote. So there are literally 0 cites to Fabric. And the criteria for reality idea is from Fabric. That one's not in BOI. That's in Fabric. There's probably other ideas from Fabric, but I didn't really look around. But I noticed that particular one is a distinctive Fabric idea, not a BOI idea, and there's no linking of it to Fabric in any way. He just really thinks he's getting everything from BOI, and yeah, criteria for. What did he do? Of reality? Oh, it's criterion instead of criteria. Yeah, 6 times criterion of reality. I think David uses criteria for reality in Fabric. And because David knows there's multiple criteria for reality, that there's no fixed list. He has a nuanced, sophisticated view of the matter that he explains. And then what Dennis is calling the criterion of reality is what David calls Dr. Johnston's criterion, which is a particular, very useful, good one that we know about, but it's not the be-all, end-all as Dennis presents it. So Dennis is presenting the idea wrong, in addition to plagiarizing it without credit. Some of his things are like quite weird and wrong, by the way. Like this one, I saw this before because it was near criterion of reality. This is like kind of nonsense. By the way, it's bizarre that there's no periods on all these things. I'm just gonna check beginning of infinity real quick. I assume David has periods. I'll just search terminology. Yeah, see, David's have periods on the end of his sentences. Period, period, period. Basic shit, but Dennis just leaves out the periods. Bizarrely in all his terminology sections. Which is, I don't know what the fuck. Anyways. Right, so the knowledge one, where here it is. Knowledge. Information which adapts through replication. This is wrong. This is not. Very confused. The normal thing you would say is it's information which has been adapted through replication. And the more adaptation that has happened in the past, the more knowledge there is. You could also say something about the more adapted it is to a niche currently, like the more suitable to replicate in that niche, the more knowledge. That again is talking about what adaptation to that niche has happened in the past already. Like how much of a knowledge creating process this adaptation through replication has already happened, and that's how much knowledge you have. Like you start with random information and then you adapt it, and then the more you do, the more knowledge there is. But this is just information which adapts through. So this, like, it could refer to anything, like the start. Yes. It could refer to like the start, like you have this information that hasn't yet, it's not yet adapted, but it will in the future be adapted. Like, a lot of junk DNA might qualify as knowledge according to this, because it certainly could adapt itself through replication. It gets replicated, and at some point there could be a selection pressure on it, or it could have a random mutation that causes it to matter. The stuff that's like currently junk DNA that's not functional seems to be like, sounds like knowledge according to this. So it is very confusing, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. And this do you see how he starts these with the misconception that? This is copied straight out of BOI. Unless it's fabric. With one of them. Let me check. It's a distinctive phrase, in my opinion, to use it as a way of defining terminology. See, BOI does this multiple times. And actually, this phrase is in BOI 12 times. Empiricism. Inductivism. Yeah, it's in BOI 12 times, the misconception that. How many times is it in the window on intelligence? 19! Holy shit, that's such plagiarism. Like, I don't know how provable it is, but you add it on top of everything else. He's just over and over using David's distinctive phrase that I found memorable and notable. That's not normal, and it's not just the phrase, but it's the way he's using it for defining terms like inductivism. David defined inductivism using this phrase, and then Dennis defined inductivism using this exact phrase. Starting the terminology with calling it a misconception, which is not a normal thing that I've seen elsewhere. Okay, and then let's compare the misconception that, so we're like, or I'll put it in blue when it's the same. Misconception that, misconception that. Okay, so now we have scientific theories versus explanations. So this is different. David's makes more sense because inductivists think we get scientific theories this way. They don't think we get they don't think you induce explanations of how the world works. They think you induce like scientific laws, and like predictions about the future, not explanations. So Dennis is ruining it. But anyways, the reason I wanted to do this is it looks like there was more similarity coming soon. Yes, it's a very target-rich environment. They're just everywhere. I didn't really look around much to write the post. I wrote the post very quickly. I did not want to spend much time on this. Anyways, through induction. Right, oh, this is what I wanted to comment on. This is why I was doing this. So it's this part here. Through induction equals, right here, by generalizing or extrapolating repeated experiences. Okay, so here, David has the phrase by generalizing or extrapolating repeated experiences. that means it's the same thing as through induction. Dennis took the written out what induction is in the definition of inductivism, and he replaced it with repeating the word he's defining, which is fucking ridiculous and stupid. But he's taking David's thing, and so far it looks like he just literally took David's thing, he copied the beginning, then he changed scientific theories to explanations to make it worse, because he uses the word explanations in his book a lot. That's probably why, right? And then he sees are obtained by generalizing or extrapolating repeated experiences. Like, oh, that's induction. I recognize that. So he writes through induction. And then we get and. So the next thing is and. So we're still copying. Like, he has the exact same first half before the and, just with the two changes, which are both terrible changes. Okay, and then I haven't read the rest. And that theory is corroborated by observation are more likely to be true. And that the more often a theory is confirmed by observation, the more likely it becomes true. It is the exact same idea. The second half is the same idea. More confirming observation equal more likely. Like, more likely, corroborated by observation, confirmed by observation. This is fucking plagiarism. It's the same fucking thing. Like, I just recognized the misconception, that part, but like the whole fucking definition is plagiarized, like, really blatantly. The whole structure is the same. All he did was take individual pieces within the sentence and reword them. But it's clearly start with David's and then take specific parts and make minor changes while keeping the meaning the same. But he's not writing from scratch his own ideas. It's straight out of BOI. Ridiculous. Alright. Yeah, BOI is plagiarized more than I am, I'm pretty sure. Like, I didn't really do like a careful comparison, and I'm plagiarized a lot, but I think BOI is plagiarized more. Okay, I will italic that. Okay. Here. Should be illegal is probably, I mean, that makes sense to me in general. I'm not sure exactly how you make a law about it. Like, I think the reason it's not illegal is that it's hard to get all the edge cases, and how do you decide like what degree of plagiarism is enough for what sort of legal punishment? Like, I have not researched this, but I assume that there's some reason it's not already illegal, and that there's some difficulty there. But it's widely considered grossly unethical. Anyways, oh yeah, I was going here because I wanted to post Justin's video. Or I'll just post the plagiarism thing first. Anyways. Okay, I'm actually gonna post this one first. I'll put the Justin thing on the bottom. Let me get the stream link. Copy. Oh no, I was gonna put Justin's first because I was gonna refer to it. Oh, how far into the stream am I? Let's see. An hour. Okay, let's figure out where it actually starts. You only need the punctuation outside for the overall sentence.
The whole section on animal learning
They're just in the golden.
as an original thinker.
The issues are David 6 times criterion of reality. To replicate. This is wrong. This is okay. It's approximately 10 minutes ago. 50. Okay. By the way, you talk about finding examples of plagiarism on stream, like they're just right there. The same thing happened when I was writing my blog post. I'd be searching for like the quote on one topic, and then I'd like see a few words like 2 paragraphs away. I'd be like, oh, there's another issue, and then I'd add it to my blog post. That like repeatedly happened. They were just so close together that when I was looking for one thing, I'd find other things. Like that's how I found all the golden rice stuff. I wasn't looking for it, it was just next to something else. Same with Feynman, I think. Oh wait, I might have searched Feynman. I searched the names of several people, like Goldratt and Feynman, to see what he said. So I probably found that from search, actually. I don't think I searched Dawkins though. I think that one might have been skimming. Or I might have searched Dawkins after I'd already seen Dawkins at least once.
Definition of conjecture. And there's no mention. It's the same guy in a citation to DD's book, BOI, where DD talks about his Turing conjecture. Right. So yeah, and if that was the only example that we had to complain about, then that would be one thing. You could say, well, maybe he thought it was, but just in the context, yeah, it's worth mentioning. So DH is using material from.
Before I forget, I'm gonna edit this into the stream description real quick. Justin's video, so it's there right away before Justin gets to this shit. I mean, gets to like timestamping what's in the video. Okay, there's the stream description. Okay, and then this. Justin's video. Okay, save. Alright, the video description now has this link and this link.
Material from DD's book with no cite to the book or explicit credit, and DH changed the name, which is a typical example of how he distorts the ideas he plagiarizes and have to screw them out of it while still leaving them recognizable as other people's ideas. I guess if you wanted to do it the right way, like if you wanted to talk about the thing and cite the source, you could say the Turing conjecture as discussed by David Deutsch in BOI, and that would be it. Citation is not rocket science, you know?
Yeah, I've seen the Church-Turing-Deutsch thing mentioned sometimes. Some of the four streams people keep bringing up. It's possible David mentioned in a different book, I forgot. Like, it might come from him. But I searched BOI, and he used Church-Turing and BOI, so I don't know why Dennis doesn't just keep copying BOI.
There's also an endnote linking to a DD blog post. I didn't read that part of the book to investigate further. Besides the list of plagiarized DD topics of all the other.
Yeah, I know, Freeze. That's what I was thinking. I mentioned this earlier, that it's like a literature review book. If he just said, this is a literature review, I will update you on some summaries of other people's work. It would be okay. Like, it'd be bad in that he screws the ideas up a lot, but, you know, you can't exactly, like, you can't do too much about people just being wrong. But he does not present it at all like a literature review. He's trying to present it as his original contributions to philosophy and AGI.
the other DD topics in the book are also plagiarized since they aren't some of the few topics where credit was given. The appropriate action is to credit DD by name in the main text every time one of DD's major ideas is introduced at minimum. In comparison, in the fabric of reality, DD shares a few criticisms of Thomas Kuhn, who's a relatively minor topic. The index indicates that Kuhn comes up on only 11 pages in a 22-page section of the book, and isn't mentioned at all elsewhere. Nevertheless, Kuhn's name is used 26 times, while DD's name is used 20 times in DH's book. Where DD is basically the main theme of the whole book, right? Yeah, so that's a good contrast between DD's scholarly seriousness and TH's. I don't think it makes much difference in this comparison, because Kuhn only
Okay, one of the problems with suing him is that his income from this book is probably like $100. Like, there's no damages to sue over that are significant. He's not reducing my sales of anything by any significant number of dollars. He's not getting any significant number of dollars. So it's, even if you could sue him, it would be hard to sue for any amount that matters. The courts are not going to recognize the ideas of mine or DD's as being worth like millions of dollars or whatever, like you might think is like their real value because of how good they are. That's not, you can't just sue over like my ideas are really, really cool, so they should be worth a lot of money. That would be a problematic legal principle. So yeah, because there are suable things in the book, because there's copyright infringement. The inductivism one is borderline, like whether that violates copyright. I think maybe it doesn't, but it might a little bit. Because it was like pretty fucking copied. But I still think it's maybe only plagiarism. But anyways, for me, like he copied 2 sentences. And there's probably like, 1 or 2 more in the book. Maybe even like a few more than that, but he wasn't copying like wholesale, like I'm gonna copy paste 5 paragraphs of someone else's writing. So the copyright violations are like relatively minor. He could fix them without changing the book that much. So it's only plagiarism with 0 copyright infringement. The book is not that far away from being edited to not be a copyright violation. However, as it currently stands, it does violate copyright. Like the criterion of universality thing, that's not fair use. And that is a copyrighted sentence. And it's hard to sue over copyright over like only 1 sentence, because normally like a single sentence just isn't worth that much. But yeah, so it's technically illegal, but the damages are just not very much. I could file a takedown notice with Amazon or something, but I don't know if I want to escalate like that. Like those are kind of a big deal, and legal battles suck, and maybe it's better to just let it go. You're welcome to leave negative reviews of the book, though. It is on Amazon and the Apple Bookstore and Barnes and Nobles, and it's on you can review it on Goodreads. So yeah, you're welcome to tell people on all of those platforms what you think of the book. Right, a sentence here and there, de minimis. Like, I think technically it's bad, but yeah, it doesn't seem worth suing over, The copyright violation is not extensive and egregious. I mean, it's sort of egregious based on your perspective, but I don't think like it's legally egregious.
Kuhn only comes up in one part of the book, but FYI, DD's book is around 40% longer than TH's. All right. And also some content to ScreenFlow. So again, I'm just going to skip through some of these because I don't want to repeat going through them. So there's some analysis of DH misrepresenting his association with DD, which was good.
I don't think it'll significantly harm BOI sales. The main reason is that Dennis's book is going to sell like 20 copies. He doesn't have an audience, so like how many sales is BOI gonna lose? And like if you're worried about screwing up BOI sales, like the Four Strands group is probably doing more harm than this book. But I don't think you can sue the Four Strands group because it's just too hard to prove damages. It's too hard to prove a causal chain from their actions to lower BOI sales and then say that they owe David money. Like the harm just isn't clear enough, even if it was enough money, which it isn't either. If Dennis had millions and millions of fans and followers, it'd be a different situation. Then you might look for something to sue over, because the amounts of harm and the amounts of money involved would be much larger.
which I think I'll make some general remarks about these, but I think somebody reading this section might think it's that Elliot is interpreting tirelessly answering in a like super literal way, but I think Elliot's argument is reasonable.
You can also sue if you're a lot bigger. Like, if me or David had millions of fans and like a much, much higher income, then it makes more sense to like send a lawyer at this to figure out some way to deal with it because like your fans are supporting you enough and supporting your work enough to pay for that, like with no problem. But when everyone involved is not like quite rich, then um courts kind of suck. They're expensive and slow and shitty in various ways. So you're really supposed to try to solve your own problems, which normally works pretty well. Most people are pretty decent. Um, there are just some bad actors who do not want to act like civilized people. Like most of how society gets along and is civilized and works well, is that people are decent people. We live in a high trust society, as Lao86 and Serpent ZA YouTubers put it, and they compare it to China, which is a low trust society where people are just like they do all these things that are just sort of a bit unthinkable and awful to us. That aren't like they're not like beating people up. It's just like ways they're really, really inconsiderate to other people or mean to them, or not like directly personally mean, just doing things that hurt others and they don't care. They don't think about the effect on others at all. Only their friends, their family, their coworkers, like people they have direct relationships with. But they aren't just nice to random other people in the world. They don't care about them at all whatsoever. Like it's a completely foreign perspective. Whereas like here, people will just help each other out all the time in like little ways. And it's not just the helping thing, like that's one aspect of it, but people also just like avoid hurting each other um and people, they don't just say I followed the letter of the law, fuck off. Like the vast majority of Americans, they want to do a lot better than follow the letter of the law. They want to be reasonable, fair, just people. They try to be moral, they try to be honest, they try to be just all these reasonable things that make civilization work pretty well and help keep conflict down. They try to be tolerant and they try to get along with other people, and they try to find like reasonable compromises and solutions that everyone can live with, that keeps so many things out of the courts because the people are just finding acceptable ways to live with each other, so it doesn't have to escalate to court. Almost everyone does that with almost everyone else almost all the time. Otherwise, the courts would be utterly overwhelmed. Like you can't run a society just on everything goes to court, like everything gets litigated. You have to have like cheaper, lower transaction costs to settle most disputes because people have conflicts all the time, like little ones. But the vast, vast majority just get settled and it's not a big deal, or just get ignored and written off. In somewhere like China, also not so much goes to court, like, but for a different reason, which is the government is oppressive. Like people are scared of the government, people are scared of the authorities. They're sort of like hiding and getting abused by the people with political favors on their side. So like dictatorships and tyrannies are different, but they don't just put everything through the courts. That would take too much work. They just like uh, oppress some people. Anyway, but Dennis is not acting like he lives in a high trust society, and he's not acting like a civilized, decent person. He's trying to go above and beyond, like way beyond the law. Like most people, plagiarism's not illegal, but most people do not want to be plagiarists, and they really, really do not want to be plagiarists, and they think that's awful. Um, like most people will put a lot of work into avoiding being plagiarists, and they'll bend over backwards to like meet you halfway. If it's like borderline cases, they'll be like, oh shit, well I don't even want to borderline plagiarize. Like what would make this okay for you? Like most people will react that way. Dennis is just beyond normal decency in our society. Like he's not just below average. This is like bottom 1% behavior. Like 99 out of 100 people are more decent than Dennis is. So it's outlier bad behavior. That's why it's so appalling. And what makes society work is that the vast majority of people are better than this.
Reasonable, and DH could have written his acknowledgement in a way that didn't use DD as a name drop. He could have said, thanks for the books that were inspiring and for answering some of my questions. He could have written that in a totally reasonable and fair way, but he didn't. The Feynman the Popperian thing is interesting just because it's such a specific and unique and distinctive claim.
Justin, is this the part where you lost recording? Because I noticed you went over the DD part like really fast. It seemed like you were sort of skipping a bit. Yeah, the DD acknowledgement didn't seem to get much attention. I thought it was pretty bad, like, because I actually know that he's just lying. Um,
Didn't. The final
okay, I thought I might have missed a few seconds, but not enough for you to have like covered that part very much. But that makes sense if I just happened to miss the part where you briefly said you were catching
inspiring and for
back
answering
up.
some of my questions. That didn't use DD as a name drop. He could have said answering in a like super literal. I think make some general remarks about these. But DD, DH misrepresenting his association with DD, which was good. All right. And lost some content to ScreenFlow. So
Oh, here it is. Okay, I found the right part. Lost content to free screen flow. Awesome content. You lost awesome content. The auto the auto subtitles know that it was awesome content. So good job, Justin. I think it's funny that like awesome got translated to from lost some. Anyway. That blue is like overly hard to read compared to my expectation. Like I should have written it in red. You know, that's way more visible.
again, so I'm just gonna skip through some of these because I don't want to repeat going through them. So there's some analysis of
But yeah, this thing about David answering Dennis's questions tirelessly for many years is just not true. And David's books being inspirations for this book, um, is a very understated. It's also very misleading.
DH misrepresenting his association with DD, which was good. Which I think I'll make some general remarks about these, but I think somebody reading this section might think it's that Elliot is interpreting tirelessly answering in a like super literal way, but I think Elliot's argument is reasonable and you know.
Okay, let me put it to you this way. Like a year ago, Dennis asked me what David's email address was. Did I put that in the post? I forget if I put it in the post or not. I think I might have left that out and just said I know it's untrue. But yeah, Dennis fucking asked me what David's email address was. Where should he try to contact David? That was like a year ago. So how the fuck do you get many years of tirelessly answering questions? I know that they had a little bit of contact before that, like a long time ago, but not many years of tirelessly answering questions. It's just not fucking true.
DH could have written his acknowledgement in a way that didn't use DD as a name drop. He could have said, thanks for the books that were inspiring and for answering some of my questions. He could have written that in a totally reasonable and fair way, but he didn't. The Feynman the Popperian thing.
All right, just a sec. Okay.
Popperian thing is interesting just because it's such a specific and unique and distinctive claim that it really like you're not gonna find that anywhere else. Elliot talks about people strongly disputing it and then DD backing him up. So that's clearly stolen. Oh, one thing I did want to say about this is that DH has this habit of um, putting a cutting remark in a parenthetical, which is a common stylistic thing that people do. He did it.
Right. Yeah, I remember he did it with the passive voice thing where he said that I like didn't recognize the importance of the thing I had just said, which is unreasonable. But yeah, it was that one.
Where did you do it? Right. Yeah. And this endnote talking about Elliot. As far as I'm aware, the notion of such a meta algorithm was first introduced in the form of a failsafe, but its significance underestimated here. So this is the point of this is, oh, this guy and this archive link, since it's Elliot, first introduced this idea here, but he didn't really get the significance. But I'm smart, so I got the significance. And so likewise, Feynman was familiar with Popperian philosophy and even taught it, though not without mistakes, which I'm smarter than Feynman about Popperian philosophy. So I see the mistakes, even though I make egregious mistakes in my plagiarizing of ideas from other people who I don't even give source acknowledgements to. But anyway.
The whole thing, though, like, it's weird because he plagiarizes, like, the first half of the sentence, but then the second half of the sentence is, like, him making crap up. So, like, source of part of his sentence, me. Source of other part of his sentence, his imagination. Not facts or reality. Which is very awkward that he doesn't separate them, because he could not, he can't fix it just by adding credit. He couldn't take that sentence and then say, I learned this from Elliot. Because that still wouldn't be okay, because half the sentence is his own imagination and half the sentence is from me. In order to do citations correctly, you have to actually split it up and put what you got from Elliot in one sentence and then your own imagination in a different sentence. And in order to put them in different sentences, you have to know which are which and be able to tell the difference, which I think is beyond Dennis. So I don't think he can write a book. Like, I don't think he could fix it.
So that was good. Yeah, DH is incompetent at citation. This is
like, even if he wanted to give me credit, he couldn't just give credit everywhere. It wouldn't work. It came up before with Rami's book, where he's like, you can have co-author credit, and I'm like, no, I can't have co-author credit because I don't know what you wrote in the book, and I'm sure I disagree with a lot of it, so that's not going to work. So you can't just give me extra credit. Because Rami was friendly and was willing to give me all the credit I wanted. It's just that it's harder to fix than that. Rami, by the way, took that book down from sale and never got around to trying to revise it or whatever, or didn't bring it up much more. So that is completely acceptable, and I have not blamed the hell out of him. I mean, it was pretty fucking dumb that he put it up at all and didn't even tell me, and there's, you know. But when I noticed it, and I was like, hey, there's a problem here, he listened to me. He wasn't hostile.
This is really bad. This is god awful. This would get red marks on a freshman 101 English paper. This is just a disaster.
Yeah, like, I think Dennis might not have gone to school or be a dropout or something. Like, I tried to check his bio. And I think he just doesn't know, like, yeah, freshman 101 English.
Disaster. It doesn't even give you the bare essentials of what you would need to know, is this a book? Is this an essay? Is this a YouTube video? Is it a handbill? Like, there's nothing, there's nothing here. No page, no word.
Yeah, I picked these in particular because they are not book titles. Because there's a bunch that look just like this, except it's a book title. It's like, okay, well, I have the author and the book. So it should tell you it's a book, or like something. It's not good enough, but author and book is pretty normal. But these are not books, so that's why I quoted those. And they're presented just like the books. Like, let's show you this shit. Back to pre. Did I typo? Oh, back to the pre. Okay, here we go. So you see right here, it is, we have a book name, in quotes, author, book name. Or here, author, essay, author, book name, author, TV show. All in quotes, they look the same. Author, title of something, page number, no edition, no. You're supposed to give like editions and like the date it came out and like where it was published, like New York, 1963, and like who the publisher was. Like, there's standard citation shit. Or at least like link the Kindle version. That's what I would do. And he's like inconsistent. Sometimes he cites a page, sometimes it's a chapter. This one's a chapter and the chapter title. Like, it's just, I don't know. And then like half his links are archive.org and like half aren't. Like, see, this David Deutsch link is not archive.org. I was not able to figure out a pattern. New Scientist, not archive.org. But then this one is archive.org. This one's archive.org. Like, I don't know why. Like, here, archive, not archive, archive. Is he alternating? No, he's not alternating. Oh, here we go. So here we have author title, no chapter, no page. So it looks exactly like when he did author essay title. There's not very many books in the endnotes. Like, I just noticed that, like, a lot of these endnotes are not sources. Like, they're actually his comments. There's a decent amount of links, but there's very few books, because, you know, I was just looking for them to see how I did the books. There's, like, a couple Popper, and there's a couple BOI. And really, in all of these fucking... Oh, he ibited this one. I didn't really notice that and take that into account. Ibid means, like, the same one again. So in some sense, I got 2 more footnotes, sort of, but not really. Oh, I know why he did that. It's because he split up the quotes into like 3 different quotes, so he just did it 3 times. Yeah, the thing that tips him off that he needs to do a footnote or endnote a lot of the time is that he's literally using a quote. See, look at this. Oxford University Press in 1987. He left out the author this time, so he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, but for once he had the publisher and the year. And he said that it was like X in Y, which is, that's a good thing. Anyways, yeah, there's not very many books in here though. There's just like he has this huge bibliography, but this bibliography is not actually in the endnotes. Like most of the books in this bibliography do not get a single endnote. There's no endnotes that refer to them. He just made. Does he think that just putting stuff in the bibliography means he's given credit and it's not plagiarism? Like, look, BOI's in the bibliography. I didn't plagiarize it. It's right there. I gave credit. Like, is that what he's doing? How does he order them? Like, why are BOI and Fabric not next to each other? It's not by date, like 2012, 1998, but then 2014. It's not alphabetical. They're just in, like, random order. If I was gonna put them in arbitrary order, I'd put his books next to each other, you know? It's just chaos. Oh, you know, it's worse than that, though. Like, look. Um, I remember finding this weird. Oh, look, he actually looked up the Hans Haas thing. But he didn't put the actual place it's published. He just said as quoted at and used the Curie thing. That's weird that he actually found the real site for it but then didn't use it. Anyways. Look, here's David Deutsch again. Oh, that's further reading. But I thought there was someone who got split up. Was it Popper? Oh, maybe it was just because of the further reading. I remember seeing stuff that was split up from the same author. Maybe it was just David Deutsch because he's in further reading and he's in bibliography, which by the way is also copied from David. That is, I don't know if I've ever seen that in books other than David's, is to split the bibliography up like that. But you get it in David's books. Bibliog. See, here's section 1. Everyone should read these. Section 2, further reading. Dennis is just copying everything. And then Fabric has something as well. Let's see what. Everyone should read these and further reading. Right. So it's both of David's books, and that's the only place I've ever seen it. And they're just these extra books David wanted to throw in and recommend that weren't like as important or specifically necessary. Or I think Dennis doesn't understand it. See, the way David does it is like these are the books he actually wants to recommend people read, and then these are the books that either they're less relevant or he has to include them because he like quoted from them or something. He doesn't actually like care about them. It can be either one. Because like he quotes like you know, Kuhn in Fabric, right? So if you go, everyone should read these, you're not going to find Kuhn, but he has to put Kuhn in the bibliography because he quoted from Kuhn. So Kuhn will then end up in section number 2 down here. So it's like a way of splitting up the good ones versus either the bad ones or the less important or less relevant ones. Because there are things he likes in the second section, but they get less emphasis. But Dennis did not understand that and didn't organize his the same way. Like, he just put 4 things in a separate section. It's not split up very evenly. Like there's no rhyme or reason to this. He just doesn't know why it was done that way or what he's doing. He cites all these German versions of Popper, like just to fucking name drop that he can read German. He's like, look, I read the original sources of Popper. It's just bragging, but like they weren't relevant to the book. Well, I think one of his cites came from a German Popper, but yeah, I think it's mostly just name dropping. Like, okay, myth of framework is. Oh, there it is. Okay, that one's actually in the text. Anyways, let's go back to the video.
Work that it's from. So you'd have to go on the internet to try and like reconstruct. If you didn't have background knowledge of Popper, like what is this and what's the source? This is something like seriously. If you take a freshman English class in college, one of the first things you'll do in that class is learn how to cite stuff in a reasonable standard format. DH doesn't use a reasonable standard format. He doesn't make up his own reasonable standard format. Elliot points out DH gets an essay without saying what it is. DH elsewhere cites books and TV shows using the same format, quote marks around the title, that he here uses for citing an article within an unnamed book. So there's no indication from the quote marks what it is, because he's using it. He's come up with his own idiosyncratic, ridiculous style. And then what are these? Are these blog posts? Are these YouTube videos? Are these unpublished essays? Are these forthcoming books? Are these the names of a Twitch stream? Who knows? God knows. Like, he doesn't say.
You can't even Google those. They're not on Google Scholar and they're not on Google. They're on CritApp. I found them in Dennis's tweet history. He has links to CritApp. If I remember right, he didn't even say what they were, but maybe he did. But once I clicked them and got to the page to load, then I was like, oh, that was that thing I was looking for. That was that one in the bibliography that I had no idea where I couldn't find it. But when I was looking at his Twitter history recently, there were 2 CritApp links, and it happened to be these exact 2 things, so I found them. But they were totally unfindable from the citations, and that's his own work. Possibly the reason he didn't give links to them is they don't have permalinks. Like, they're at these temporary links on a domain he might not keep, and the links are like a total mess. They do not look like permalinks where you just have like a minimal amount of information that's never going to change. They look like they just have all this weird software junk in the link, so that they might just move when he works on the software. But he could have just put them on his fucking Medium. He has a Medium. He could have put them there and like linked that. Or doesn't he have like a domain he controls that he could like you make a redirect. So you do like if it were me, I would be like, okay, this is at curie.us/whatever. And then if I ever move it, I just make that that page redirect to the new place. Because I control that page, so I can put it wherever I want on the internet and just have a redirection to it from the link I gave. Right, he could have an archive of like every single web page he cited and like mirror it on his webpage or something. And you know what else he could do with his fucking CritUp stuff? Like he could use an archive.is link to it, like get them to mirror it for him and then link the mirror because he doesn't have a permalink for it. Um, By the way, and not saying what type of thing it was helps make it seem prestigious. Like my first guess, I'm like, oh, are those like journal articles? That's sort of like the assumption when you see like a title like that, and he's citing it in this bibliography, is you think maybe it's a journal article. So I searched Google Scholar, like nope, not a journal article, probably. And then yeah, it's on CritUp, so it's like a blog post. Blog posts are less prestigious, but he was hiding the fact that he was citing his own less prestigious stuff. When he cites my blog post, it's an archive.org link to a curie.us link. Like he tries to make it extra not prestigious. When he cites his own stuff, he like doesn't even give the fact that it's a web page to make it look more prestigious. Even he goes so far as hiding how to find it just to make it sound prestigious because he thinks the titles will impress people.
So I started getting into this. DH is a jerk. The large portions of the book are about DD's ideas, Nick Bostrom.
He probably doesn't want people to read the body. They'll find out it's crap. But the titles of those 2 things sound clever.
It was brought up as a target to attack, not as a source. Right, yeah. So basically, DH bashes Bostrom and is mean. And while he might have an intellectual point, his intellectual arguments maybe don't quite substantiate saying that Nick Bostrom's book Superintelligence is a Gestapo style manual, which is a comparison to the Nazis who killed millions of people. So that's
Yeah, this is such a like the boy who cried wolf. Like you're not supposed to scream Nazi every time someone says something you don't like. Because then what do you say when there are real Nazis? Like it just diminishes the concept of calling people Nazis when you do it over an intellectual disagreement about computer science theory. I mean, it's a bit more than that. Like the slave stuff makes more sense, but the Nazi thing just makes no sense. Like Dennis isn't a leftist, last I knew. Like, I mean, he partly is, but he was like, he hates SJWs and makes fun of them and mocks them and reads some, like, right wing Twitter accounts. I don't know if he wants people to know that, but too bad. But yeah, he's totally unacceptable to the mainstream PC culture. He has a bunch of un-PC beliefs. He's not just a leftist joining the mob shouting at Nazis. He is one of the people that a lot of prestigious people would think is a Nazi because he likes Twitter accounts like what's that one with the blonde, but it's not really her. It just only does satire and pretends to be an SJW. Tatiana McGrath came right up SJW satire Twitter. Like he likes that account. So he's not acceptable to the ruling elite leftists. Yeah, this one. This is written by a guy. There was an article where he like admitted it and talked about it that I saw. Um, but anyways, this is like alt-right shit. Like, I mean, I think it's completely fine and reasonable, and it's just making fun of the left being stupid. But there are people who think this is like unacceptable, you know? So he's not just a leftist screaming Nazi, he's one of the Nazis screaming Nazi, in some sense. Anyway, and the whole slavery stuff, like that AI alignment is slavery, like that's my idea. He got that straight from me. And then he took it to, flaming levels that are different than how I do it. And certainly different than how I would do it in a book commenting on another author. I'd word it a bit differently for that, but I've certainly made comments on stream about AI alignment being slavery, and like there's a big problem there. But Dennis, so the whole like concept that he's getting that from me. It's implied by Dee Dee's ideas. Like Dee Dee probably knew that, but Dee Dee didn't publish it, and I'm the one who told the world. Dennis got it from me and isn't giving credit, and then he's fucking it up by calling the guy a Gestapo, like a Nazi. Which is not where I was going with it. Like I don't think these people are like slaveholders. Like they do not have the mentality of like a slaveholder who's whipping people to harvest cotton. Um, like mind control is like puppetry. It is like slavery for the victim. Like I think the victim is like a slave. Like from the victim's perspective, it's like slavery is very important. Um, Maybe I've been too harsh with them because I think I've probably said a bit more than that. Like they're confused intellectually, but they do not have the mindset of slaveholders. They're not looking to have slaves for themselves personally. It's just that like their sort of authoritarian political views about how to deal with potential threats are quite extreme. Like instead of reason and persuasion, their mindset is well, that's risky, that might not work, they might disagree with us and turn us into paper clips anyways, and they're super powerful. Therefore, since they're so powerful and reason is unreliable, we need more extreme control to make sure. Which does lead to slavery type stuff, but like these people are just confused intellectuals. They're not dictators and Nazis. The people we're talking about are people like Bostrom and Eliza Yudkowsky. And then also, so Dennis does, this comes up next, like stuff about how an AGI is like a child and the creator is like a parent. That's from me. He got that from me.
That's a serious claim, not to be made trivially. Lots of okay, so I think it was here. Lots of the reasoning DH uses for attacking Bostrom and AI alignment and slavery is plagiarized from ET. DH also plagiarized the view of a new AGI is similar to a child needing an education. Comments like if you build an AGI, you are a parent are taken from ET. The AGI material is easily recognizable and distinctive while also being changed enough to screw it up. By the way, elsewhere DH also brings up parenting to talk about it being an area heavy with static memes, which is again something he got from ET rather. And again, it's a really distinctive claim. I mean, like the level of plagiarizing of ideas.
How specific that is. Like, take static meme theory and then build on it by saying like which area of life will have the most static memes and why, which Dennis doesn't even understand. You can tell from what he wrote about it that he literally doesn't understand it very well, because he didn't just plagiarize the idea that parenting will have the most, which he didn't quite know how to explain, but he also plagiarized the idea that romance would be like the second most. He added something else too, like he tried to add his own idea. It didn't make, I forgot what he said, but he threw in another one. But he had parenting and romance as two of the main ones. Um, but he didn't know why romance was on the list. Like he couldn't explain it. He just was not very coherent. The reason romance is on the list is it affects the situations in which people are parents. Like it sets up the circumstances for the parenting transmission of memes. Like the parenting behavior itself transmits memes to the kids, but then the circumstances of like who you're a parent with and in what situations you become a parent is relevant to the parenting behavior. It's like setting the scene for parenting behavior, but he didn't know that. He didn't know how to explain it. He was just confused. He's not a very good plagiarist. Like he doesn't understand like a lot of what he's feeling. It's the same way with the universality stuff. Like he needed a lot of personal help to understand it enough to just even repeat it coherently. Like at first he just didn't get it at all. It's the same with the animal stuff. He could not argue that animals are not intelligent when he started. He did not know that. He thought his cat was smart. He couldn't tell the difference. He didn't know what was wrong with the claim that his cat was smart. I had to explain it to him. Like, he just completely 180'd his position on animal intelligence because of my arguments. And then he put it in the book with no credit that I taught him that, and it's all mine.
Of ideas is just it's just so I don't even know. Like it's just beyond words almost. DH also slanders the US South and other slaveholding societies that are history by implication by suggesting that slaveholders only ever gave slaves a minimum food, shelter, etc. to keep their slaves alive to get acceptable work out of them. A slaveholder needs, so DHS, a slaveholder needs to keep his slaves alive so that they continue to work for him. He improves their well-being only to the point they can perform the work to an acceptable degree. That's super false. This degree can be much lower than what promotes comfort or health, resulting in tremendous suffering. I mean, first of all, this seems to be contemplating chattel slavery, which, and it's not even true then. But then the way it's written.
Oh, you said chattel slavery. I heard child slavery at first, but I think it was chattel. Which is you treat them like chattels, sort of like cows, but I don't know exactly what the word means, so I'm gonna look it up. A personal possession, treating them like possession. So treating them like just goods, like property, like the same way you would treat them if they weren't human, basically. Right, so there's more respectful forms of slavery where you treat them like differently than your animals. And then chattel slavery is when you're treating them like as close as you can to animals. Comes from cattle. Anyway, I think it's something like that.
It's written because there's been societies that have had different forms of slavery over the years that had different norms about them. So, but it's not even true in the most extreme case. So, although I'm not a fan of slaveholders, this is an unfair attack that doesn't accurately represent slavery throughout history, rather. There have been many times that slave owners were kind to slaves and even voluntarily freed them. Not all slaves were horribly mistreated, some were horribly mistreated. For example, in the silver mines of ancient Greece, including too often being mistreated to the point that they didn't stay alive, contrary to what DH says. Yeah. Well, it's like, some people, yeah, they, even accepting a mental model where people can be property, like business owners vary greatly in terms of how well they take care of their property. That's, not everybody actually does the minimum to maintain it, and the same can go for when societies where human beings are treated as property. So I suspect DH is thinking in terms of game theory, but hasn't read about slavery in actual societies. And that's the other thing is that, like, human beings are people, and so in reality, people often treat them as such. Even if they're in a slave relationship, they still often, they don't. Their owners don't treat them just like a widget. Oftentimes, like a.
Yeah, like he's very ignorant. There are other things I thought of bringing up here, but I moved on. But like, there's the whole trilogy of historical fiction, the Imperium trilogy, from the perspective of Cicero's slave, who he like frees and gives a farm to, and he would have freed him earlier in the series, except there were like tactical considerations, and the slave refused and wanted to keep going with him. And but anyways, he's he has a decent place in the household. Like he's a decent place in society, even though he's a slave to Cicero. He has to like keep working for Cicero. It's not like voluntary employment that he can just quit. But it's still, he has a decent place in society. He's not getting whipped. Like he's an educated person who's doing a good job. It's sort of like an Enoch advisor in Game of Thrones to some like royalty who like maybe isn't allowed to quit and doesn't have control of their life, but they're not like working the fields either. They're actually in a position of significant power. Like I think his model of slavery is unfair stereotypes of the US South, and that's it. And he's not aware of like the variety of slavery in different societies, which ranges from much better to much worse, and also very situational. Like the same society depends on who the slave is and the situation. Like I don't think he's thinking about things like Sparta and the Helots, which are quite different. Which includes just like literally murdering their own slaves to try to keep them scared enough not to rebel, instead of doing the minimum to keep them alive. Like murdering your slaves is not the minimum to keep them alive. You just have enough of them that you can murder some. That's a different strategy. Dennis didn't think of that, I guess. So he's very rationalist about this thing, and just like clueless.
Yeah, double.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna check the title. Robert, yeah, Imperium, a novel of ancient Rome. Robert Harris. So I liked this trilogy. If you're looking for historical fiction, it's pretty good. Anyways, if you want to know about rationalism, it is explained in this book by Peikoff. It's specifically, I'm using the word in the way that objectivism uses it. You can't look it up anywhere else to get what I meant. You have to read objectivism because I'm using their terminology. So he's the objectivist sort of rationalist because the word has more than one meaning. And yeah, understanding objectivism has an explanation.
The ball bearing or something. Like it's so yeah. There's something like rationalistic about this analysis. Okay. Another odd use of the concept of slavery is the evolutionary biologist.
Oh right, so with slavery, it wasn't just like that part where he's like calling Bostrom like a slaveholder type person. He brings up slavery like in other parts of the book. Like he uses the word in like three different ways. Because he said that Bostrom was a slave to static memes, and he said Bostrom was like a slaveholder. That's two different uses. Those are different things. And then here he has the stuff about how organisms are slaves to their genes, which is not what Dawkins believed or said, and it is a third use.
Biologist Richard Dawkins discovered that organisms are protective shields genes build around themselves. Organisms are the slaves that genes use to spread through the population, and like all organisms, human bodies are the slaves that genes use to achieve this purpose. First of all, the term survival machine appears 96 times in Dawkins' book, The Selfish Gene. That's why I still remember it even though I haven't read the book for many years. Why doesn't DH use the right term? The term shield is only in the book once in a different context. DNA membranes. Dawkins' term is more accurate and descriptive and somewhat different. A machine does more than a shield. For example, machines have moving parts and can plausibly hunt for food, which all shields don't. DH has distorted Dawkins' viewpoint and is getting stuff wrong even before the stuff about slaves. The stuff about slavery is confused, is a poor explanation of survival machines, and is being unfairly associated with Dawkins, who never said it. To make it harder to tell that Dawkins never said it, DH gives no side here, not even mentioning which of Dawkins' books he's talking about. Yeah. Not being plagiarized by DH is a mixed blessing because he misrepresents people's views when he does name them. Right. Dennis Hackethal's comments. I contacted DH when I first saw a major issue in the book, which was the criterion of universality issue. He responded, agreeing that he was in the wrong and that the book should be changed. He also informed me of his belief that the book had many more problems of a similar nature. He asked me to do the work of documenting them for him and send him all of the problems at once. In my reply, I provided DH with what he'd asked for. He wanted a bunch of problems at once instead of one by one. He had said he would review what I sent him. I sent him a pre-publication copy of this blog post, which wasn't very different than the final version. Deutsch replied that he wouldn't read or review any of the plagiarism problems with his book because he didn't have time, which means because there were too many problems with his book, so it was too much to read. But he'd asked for everything at once, and I didn't even send him anything near a comprehensive review of the book's errors. Rather than read whatever amount he'd been willing to read, for example, only 5 problems for the whole book, he decided to read none of them. Breaking his word about reviewing the problems I sent him in his request, DH's reply also said he consulted a lawyer and implied that he would only deal with copyright violations, not plagiarism. The unstated reason is that copyright violations break the law, while plagiarism is unethical, but it's not generally against the law. So DH is knowingly and intentionally a plagiarist. I tried to double check this with him, but he didn't reply. I know this is shocking beyond belief, so here are quotes. Here's DH agreeing that he made a mistake about the criterion of universality. It looks like you did tell me that sentence, in which case the right thing to do is credit you. He then proposed to add an endnote with no mentioning ET's name anywhere in the book, while still leaving ET's sentence in the main text of the book with no quotation marks, as if DH wrote it. Here's DH stating his belief that the book has more issues of a similar nature, copyright violation and plagiarism, based on incorrect speculation of how ET was reading. Judging by the passage you're at, it looks like you're still pretty early in the book, as I'm sure you will find more issues. DH continued with his request for information about copyright and plagiarism problems to be sent all at once in one long document covering the whole book. I suggest you finish reading the book so I can review your suggestions, making applicable edits in one go. Note how DH is sure there are more issues in the book, but
Right, he wanted it all at once, and then he's like, oh shit, this is too much. I'm not gonna read it. Like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy?
intends to do nothing about them unless and until ET explains them to him. In the meantime, DH won't even try to fix the issues in his book that he's sure are there. Of course, it's not ET's job to point out DH's plagiarism to him. ET did DH a huge courtesy by sending him lengthy documentation of some of the many plagiarism issues. In DH's second email, he began by forgetting that he'd asked for all the info at once and expressing his disinterest in revising his book to fix the plagiarism. I don't have time to read your blog post. He then brought up his lawyer and changed the subject to only be copyright, not plagiarism. ET's reply asked, you only replied about copyright. You're saying you're unwilling to address plagiarism issues. DH did not reply, and Elliot has some links to screenshots of emails. So, conclusion. DH's book is full
Or someone just replied on my blog. Just saying Michael Nielsen used church during Deutsch principle, yeah. I knew I'd seen it elsewhere before. But yeah, Nielsen credits DD. Yeah, anyway.
book is full of plagiarism. He tries to pass off other people's ideas as his own in order to manipulate public perceptions of them. Right, and yeah, the whole structure of how he's going about things, the whole purpose of it, he's not an originator. He can't come up with his own significant contributions to ideas. But he wants to have the status of somebody who does, who has that ability. So he has a desire for the unearned, and that desire, it's fundamentally corrupt, because you're basically, once you have a desire for the unearned, then you're at war with reality. Reality is your enemy, and so you've got to figure out, and other people are your enemy, and so you've got to figure out how to swindle them. And one way is to befriend and join a community and make it seem like you're interested in ideas, and then use those ideas, don't give credit, pass them off as your own, hope nobody notices, and then maybe one day people will say your name at cocktail parties. So continuing, he plagiarizes heavily from at least ET and DD, who have a bunch of important and original ideas that aren't very well known, so they're particularly good targets to plagiarize. Yep. It also has at least 2 copyright infringements where it uses ET's writing, his DH's words, no quote or credit, instead of just copying and paraphrasing ideas from ET and DD without credit. Although some of the problems are due to DH's incompetence, it was his responsibility to learn what plagiarism is, not just to give credit before publishing a book. He surely heard of plagiarism and could have investigated the matter before acting on it so unethically. And DH has done this partly maliciously and partly in an attempt to decline the social status hierarchy. I agree. The book should be withdrawn from the market and we need massive revisions to be ethical. Right. Of course, he doesn't really care about ethics, so DH. Ethically, it needs to be withdrawn from the market while its revisions are being made, otherwise DD would be intentionally moving plagiarism during that time.
Yeah, there's a paragraph somewhere, I think it didn't get attention. Maybe it was in the part that Justin had recording issues. But there's a part where I mentioned that Dennis personally told me that he's a social climber, that he wants to climb the social status hierarchy, that he cares about his public reputation, that he cares about public perception of him, and that he cares about the perception regardless of what the truth is, regardless of who's right or wrong. He just wants to look good. He told me all that. I'll post quotes if he denies it. It wasn't even private. Like he DM'd me that. After he had already been hostile to me. Which was very stupid of him. It also shows how sad this is, because his attempt at social climbing is so bad. Like, he's gonna look bad with all the plagiarism and stuff. Like, my blog post shows up on Google, or not Google, on Bing and Yahoo. If you type in his name and his book name, you got my blog post about how he's a plagiarist as the top hit on both Yahoo and Bing right now. And it's not that hard to find on Google either. If you, depending on search terms, it's findable. And so he looks bad, and like prospective employers or business partners or investors or whatever, they can find this. They can find this out. So he's fucking himself in terms of public perception and looking good and whatever. So he's very incompetent at what he's trying to do, and he won't take any steps to stop looking bad though. Like he won't stop plagiarizing or be reasonable or denounce internet harassment from Andy or anything.
Time. The revisions would also need to be documented so people would know what was changed and could check whether that was acceptable. Hiding the version history of the book or being vague about the revisions would be unacceptable. I agree with that as well. People should have a clear indication of what revisions were being made, what corrections, so they can compare and judge. If you're considering a business or personal relationship with the H or an intellectual collaboration, or even just reading his book, I suggest you reconsider. If you're already involved with the H, I suggest raising the plagiarism issue with him and then disassociating from him if you reach a conclusion that his plagiarism is extensive and indefensible. DH received credible information that the book contained plagiarism, agreed that it did. Stated he believed his book contained more plagiarism. As to be told problems, received that info and refused to read it. This is all on purpose. Right? And the thing is, like, what what did he expect was going to happen? You know, there's a video a while ago of a guy who uh, basically he's like an engineer or something. I forget where he works. It might work at NASA or something, or maybe he did, but now he's doing YouTube full time. Anyways, there's this guy, and he's made a couple of videos where he creates these incredibly elaborate boxes that are basically super elaborate pranks on the people who steal boxes, like Amazon boxes from the porch pirates. And you know, when it's a very fancy rig, and that he makes, and it's got like a bunch of cell phones pointed in all directions, and they start recording, and there's a GPS, and there's like glitter that explodes all over the room when the box is opened. There's like skunk spray that starts spewing, and then there's like a police siren that goes off. It's like really elaborate, And so the guy who he made a first video and he made like a follow up, and in the follow up he got like a few people to help him, and I'm going somewhere with this by the way, and I don't know how he recruited people somehow, and then one of the guys who he recruited to help like deploy his boxes or whatever just decided to like keep the box and not do anything, and the guy, the video maker, the engineer guy, like really messed with the guy. Like I thought it was over the top. Like he kind of signed up to all this like Scientology mailing list and all this crazy stuff that it's just going to be impossible to get his name off of. But anyway, the point of all that is like, well, what did that guy who kept the box from the guy who has a reputation of making YouTube videos where he messes with people in elaborate ways? What did that thief think was going to happen ultimately? And if he was going to mess with anybody in the whole world, why would he mess with the person that clearly?
You got a good point there, Justin. Jesus. Yeah. I'm gonna fuck with like an internet prankster who puts it on YouTube and spends money on pranking people is a very questionable decision making.
Is has a lot of time and energy to put into things that are going to be unpleasant for that thief. And so likewise with DH, he's trying to build a reputation as a social climber by stealing a bunch of intellectual content from somebody and not giving credit. What did he just think that was going to just pass and nothing? There would be no pushback, no consequence. It's a really bad plan. I mean, like the whole strategy of fighting with reality and fighting with other people instead of cooperating with them is bad, and wanting the unearned is bad. But even within that universe, this was not a wise move. So and there's yeah. So that was just my thought about that. Overall, I thought the blog post from Elliot was persuasive. Like I said, I didn't go through every part because I lost some video. The screen flow likes to just choke on my computer sometimes. I don't know why. And I didn't want to go through and read everything again, so I just did some summary. Anyways, if you're interested, you should read the post yourself and maybe comment on it. There's already a couple comments, and this is the issues of what counts as plagiarism and what counts as giving good credit, sufficient credit to a source. What is appropriate citation to give, and just how not to be a jerk, and how to problem solve. Like these are important skills to master if you want to be an intellectual, if you want to accomplish anything worthwhile in life. So with that, I end my video.
Alright, well that was the video. I've been streaming for 2 hours. I have a bunch of other stuff I could do, like I have coronavirus stuff I could read. What do I want to prioritize? Some of the reading I want to do with Voice Dream Reader because it's faster. But I'll read like a few of them and take Q&A, I guess. Maybe I'll read this one. This is Alan's blog post from today. Oh, let me refresh a couple things real quick. I just want to see if there's a reply to Nick Lack on Facebook. There was not. Anyway, yeah. Facebook, Nick Lack responded. See, Dennis kind of got away with something because I didn't know about his book right away. So he like advertised it, and then no one pays attention to old posts. So I didn't call him out fast enough. Even if I'd called him out the day that I first saw the book existed, it wouldn't have fixed the problem. It was still a bit late for like people on Facebook to notice / care. But then I let him delay me several extra days, but it was already like over a week since the book came out, so it didn't matter that much at that point anyways. Like the difference between saying something like 7 days after it comes out or 10 days after it comes out is very little. Whereas if it's like 1 versus 4, it matters. He tried to delay me like even more though. He's like, don't tell me when to respond. I'll respond to emails on my own time. Like, I don't know. This is very unreasonable under the circumstances. Anyways, yeah. So, Nick posted this thing about plagiarism. No response. Then Dennis's Twitter feed. He didn't even block me, but I blocked him. So if I load this on a regular window when I'm logged in, it says you're blocking this person and then hides all the tweets, and then you can click a button and then they show up. But it's easier to just not be logged in, so you don't have to click a button for them to show up. Anyways, right. So after the plagiarism post, he just went on with stuff like normal. And yeah, I emailed him about the DOS, and he did not respond, so that's also bad. And he has not responded to the question. It's in my blog post, like, this one. You only replied about copyright. Are you unwilling to address plagiarism issues? He didn't respond to that. So I'm gonna take that as a yes. He's literally just admitting he's unwilling to address plagiarism issues. That's my reading. I think it's like reasonably clear from his emails too. Like the first email suggests he will address them, and then I send him like, here, there's 4,000 words of plagiarism issues. And he's like, oh, I'm not gonna read this. I'm not gonna deal with those. Talk to my lawyer if you have a copyright complaint. Like, okay, you don't want to address plagiarism. That's what's going on here. you realized you had a bigger problem. You thought it was like a couple things you could easily fix, and then when you found out your problem was big enough that you couldn't easily fix it, then you just didn't want to deal with it and you decided to ignore it. Which is really like dishonest. I think he's so incompetent he didn't know how big a problem he had. Yeah, Justin, by the way, didn't click on these, but in the video, unless I was just not paying attention. But I posted the actual emails from Dennis, so you can see everything he said. If you want, if you doubt how unreasonable he was, here's all of his words in full. And this one has everything I said when I first contacted him. And then this one has everything I said other than the draft of the blog post. The only thing that you don't see here is the draft of the blog post. So basically you have everything. So you can read both what he said and what I said. Okay, so Alan, salmon on rational prediction. Which he renamed it, but he's using WordPress or whatever, and then the link has the old name still. See, salmon on solving practical problems. I got notified of it, and then like I refreshed the page later, and then it changed. So here's the notification: salmon on solving practical problems. It's not very important. I just noticed. Anyways, salmon on rational prediction. Rational prediction should be capitalized because it's a title. Not a big deal at all. I don't always title case my own blog posts. Not consistent about that. Because it's just not very important. I don't care that much. Like, it doesn't really make a functional difference. But if I'm like the things where I'm trying harder, then I would do it because it's like correct. And I know how it works, which is important. Like you want to know the rules before you break them, so you know what you're breaking and how it works and stuff. You want to be capable of doing it correctly before you decide to not do it correctly. Whereas like Dennis did cites incorrectly, but also he wasn't capable of doing it correctly. He has very bad judgment about where to take shortcuts and whatever. He doesn't actually know the proper stuff. You have to like master it first, and then you can find out what corners you might be able to cut. Anyways, okay, so rational prediction, criticizing Karl Popper. It's from 1981. All right, this is old enough that I'm wondering if like Popper responded in any way. Or is Salmon in the Schlip volumes? Let's find out. Oh yeah, there's discussion trees from Nick. Maybe I'll look at these after the Alan blog post. These are things I wanted to do on the stream. There's like one more. It's the coronavirus one, but I don't have it saved in the folder where I just opened those from. Anyways. Popper. The Philosophy of Karl Popper, Schlep, Volume 1. Okay, there's so many people. I'm gonna try searching first. This should be OCR'd. Oh, attempts of salmon, site 11. Salmon. Wesley Salmon, The Foundations of Scientific Inference, 1967. Okay, so it's not a response to the 1981 paper, but it's he knows about salmon in response to one of his main works. All right, what year is this thing from, anyways? Like, it might be before that particular salmon paper. 1974. Oh yeah, so this predates the 1981 paper. Anyways. Okay. I have to read this like long salmon quote. According to Popper, negative instances provide rational grounds for rejecting generalizations. If, however, we make observations and perform tests. Right, so a negative instance is a contradicting instance. So if you have a generalization like all swans are white, and then you see a black swan, then you know you can reject the generalization, all swans are white. So Popper is correct. All right, let's see what happens in sentence 2. If we make observations and perform tests, but no negative instance found, all we can say deductively is that the generalization in question has not been refuted. Correct, yes. In particular, positive instances do not provide confirmation or inductive support for any such unrefuted generalization. Okay, yes, correct. That is Popper's position. This is good. This is better than a lot of critics so far. Like, a lot of people can't even summarize Popper's position this much without getting it wrong. So far, so good. At this stage, I claim we have no basis for rational prediction. This stage of what? I'm confused. I don't know what he means, but it might not be wrong. So, we'll see. Taken in themselves. And this might not be entirely his fault. I think it's probably his fault, but I haven't read the context. Like, whatever paragraphs came before this might help. So, I can't be like super confident that it's his fault that it's confusing. But I don't know what stage is in particular. At this stage of what? What? So that's hard to understand. Like, is at this stage, it could be at this stage of developing an epistemology where all we know is that negative instances refute and positives don't. Then we have no basis for rational prediction. Like, I would agree with that. That's not a adequately developed epistemology. Because you don't have induction, you don't have a replacement for induction. You just have deduction. It's like we can't make rational prediction with only deduction. Basically, that's a summary. But there's other things he could mean, like he could mean like at this stage of the evidence where we just have a bunch of non-contradicting evidence or something. Like the stage is unclear. Like, I don't know. Anyway, taken in themselves, our observation reports refer to past events, and consequently they have no predictive content. This is false, and it's unclear if this is supposed to be Popper's position or Salmon's position. I think this is Salmon's position, but it's not that clear that he's no longer summarizing Popper. Because he just like states it as a fact. See, he had an I claim in the previous sentence, but this sentence doesn't say I claim. It's the same paragraph that started with according to Popper in the topic sentence. And now we have something that isn't specifically qualified as not Popper, but I think it's not Popper. So this is pretty bad writing. Anyways. And the logic of this is wrong. You can in fact use past observations to help you understand the future. There's a causal connection between the past and the future. They aren't unrelated. It isn't just a non sequitur from past to future. You just have to be careful about how you do it, and it's fallible and stuff, but it's not nothing. They say nothing about future events. No. If, however, we take a jump, but it's possible that Salmon doesn't mean what he's saying. Like, he might just mean deductively, like no deductive predictive content. They say nothing deductively about future events. Like, if he means it that way, then he'd be correct. It's possible he just meant that without saying it. It's hard to tell, but it seems like something reasonably plausible. If, however, we take a general statement as a premise and conjoin it to some appropriate observation statements about past or future or present events, we may be able to deduce it. See, now he's back to deduction. So he might have meant deduction the whole time, even though he didn't specify. He might be the kind of person who thinks that terms like rational grounds refer to deduction. Oh, so I started this at like 2 hours and 5 minutes or something. Copy. Notes. Okay. Started around 2:05 min. Commenting on. Nope, not that. This. Oh, right. I needed the stream link as well. Comments are at there. Okay, back to the post. I'm gonna rephrase this. Started. Okay. I think a little after. I didn't want to scroll up because then it would be hard to get my shit aligned again. The right words. So yeah. Okay, there we go. That I can post that as a blog comment later. And I'll post it on Alan's blog, possibly slightly edited, but Popper himself gives this account in The Logic of Prediction in the Schlipp book. Oh, yay, he read the Schlipp book. 1974. Wait, was that the year I saw? There probably was. My memory is a little fuzzy and I wanted to double check. Wait, why is preview like kind of. Is preview not open or did it crash or something? Whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna move on. Okay. No problem with rational prediction. Wait, no, I have the book already open in Finder. I just open it that way. Here we go. 1974. Okay, it is the same year. Oh, we have this open. Let's check page 1030. I think that's gonna be in volume 2. Yeah, that's volume 2. Alright, here's volume 2. Alright, page 1030. 1140. 1104. 1067. Oh, let's search for salmon in this book real quick. This is volume 2. Alright, so salmon comes up several times. Oh, here we go. Alright, we're in the right place. These red things are in the way. Alright, we're gonna kill the red things. Rip. So he's talking about induction. And we have page 1030. And so he's talking about our corroboration statements allow us to make, it's not our corroboration statements, but our theories which allow us to make predictions. Right, so we have like a theory of physics that lets us make predictions. Our theories have predictive import. Our data does not directly predict the future. Okay, that makes sense. Salmon, however, writes, Watkins acknowledged that corroboration does have predictive import in practical decision making, quoting says of some agent who has a limited number of theories to choose from, it would be rational for him to choose the better corroborated one since he has nothing else to go on. Anyway, yeah, nothing whatever by predictive nature follows from a corroboration statement or even from the synthetic statement that yesterday T1 was found to be less well corroborated than T2. On the other hand, in deriving the prediction, nothing is Rational in the sense of preferring the logically better theory. This is not the meaning of rational that I normally use or that Popper uses at all times. A different meaning of rational is better at error correction. That's the one Deutsch uses, and Popper uses it sometimes. And then rational also can mean sort of in general, like not arbitrary, not just subjective or bullcrap or random or anything like that, but like you actually have good objective reasons where there's a thought process where you're like thinking in an appropriate way instead of a dumb way or an unreasonable way. Which there's a lot of ways to be rational that aren't just using logic. Like there's lots of reasonable thought isn't just logic. Okay, so I don't think that Salmon did a very good job of summarizing page 1030. And he gives only page 1030, and the Popper's explanation starts on the previous page. So that's wrong. Like, this is the kind of thing that Salmon's talking about, and this is on page 1029. And then he gives page 1030. Like, what the fuck? Why didn't he just say page 1029 to 1030? He needed stuff from both pages. Oh, this is nice. He says Salmon understands Popper's views pretty well. This is according to Popper. Except, he's still puzzled about their relation to, quote, knowledge. Hypotheses themselves form no part of the corpus of our knowledge. My voice is getting tired. I should say yes and no. No, the theories do form part of the corpus of our objective knowledge. They do not, of course, form part of the corpus of knowledge in the sense of Salmon, subjective justified knowledge. Oh, Salmon's a JTB guy. That's why he has trouble with the issue of what Popper's ideas have to do with knowledge, because Popper does not solve the problem of how do we get justified true belief. He solves the different problem of how to get information that is adapted to a problem. Anyways, yeah, so he clearly should have at least cited page 1029 for this, like the start of the paragraph. Like this paragraph was like the most relevant thing from here to here was the most relevant thing, and he cited page 1030 only. Also, this is 15 objective and subjective knowledge. Okay, so that's the section title. I'm just gonna look at the table of contents, actually. That'll be better. Okay, so 1030 is where Medawar on hypothesis and imagination starts, following up on objective and subjective knowledge, which is the one where he's talking about the Salmon stuff. Then at the bottom of 1030 is where he started talking about Medawar. And this is in part 3, the problem of induction, or section 3, which is in part 3, the philosopher replies. Where is this fucking the logic of prediction? Oh, that's not part of the cite. My bad. Popper himself gives this account of the logic of prediction. It's in italics, but it's not a title. I was reading it as like the title of the article or something, but it's not. Okay. The italics partly are what threw me off, plus it comes right after the cite, so. And the cite doesn't have a title. Which is okay. This is standard because there will be a bibliography, so like you put this shorter thing in the body, and then the bibliography gives you the title of the book. You just look in the bibliography for Schlip plus 1974, and then you find out the full information about that book. And then it's page 1030. Okay. So they're assuming that like rational prediction is about logic. We're talking about like premises, and this by argument, I'm pretty sure they mean like deductive argument. We shouldn't use a generalization which has actually been refuted. Okay, yes, that is indeed Popper's claim. If you have a counterexample to a general theory, then you should not use that general theory as a way of predicting things. Yes, the Popper does believe that. I believe that. That makes a lot of sense. Don't act on known refuted bullcrap. It sounds like Salmon is going to disagree. Like, I haven't gotten there yet, but he's setting this up like he might be disagreeing. You ought not to employ premises which are known to be false. Again, yes, I agree with Popper. If we hope to deduce true prediction. Makes sense, yes. The exclusion of refuted generalization does not, however, tell us what general premise should be employed. Okay, that's true too. Maybe he's not going to disagree. Maybe he's just repeating Popper and agreeing. Hopefully, because this shit makes a lot of sense. I hope he agrees with it. Typically, there will be an infinite array of generalizations which are compatible with the observational evidence. I don't know about typically. Isn't it like 100% of the time? Hi, Tofan. Which are therefore as yet unrefuted. Okay, yep. If we are free to choose arbitrarily among them, we could predict anything, whatever. Yep. Well-known point, very important point. This is one of the major problems in the field that inductivists do not. A lot of the inductivists I talk with don't understand this well enough, and don't have a good answer to it. They just sort of deny that it's true. Like they're just not familiar with the infinity and the ability to predict anything, whatever. If all you have to do is be logically compatible with the evidence, as in not like literally contradicting the evidence. If there were no rational basis for choosing from among all the unrefuted alternatives, then, as I think Popper would agree, there would be no such thing as rational prediction. Agree. If there were no rational basis, then we wouldn't have rational prediction. Right, we have to have some sort of rational basis. It doesn't have to be a deductive logic basis, but it has to be rational in the general sense. We are not in this unfortunate situation, Popper contends, for we do have grounds for preferring one unrefuted generalization to another. Okay, and when he says unrefuted here, he means empirically unrefuted. So my general position is that we do not have grounds for preferring one unrefuted generalization to another. But when I say that, by refuted or unrefuted, I mean using any type of criticism, not only empirical criticism. If you limit it to only empirical criticism, then yes, we can have two unrefuted ideas, and we have to prefer one to the other. And the way we do that is with using other types of criticism. Okay, so now we're quoting Popper from page 1024. My solution to the logical problem of induction was that we may have preferences for certain of the competing conjectures, that is, for those which are highly informative and which so far have stood up to the eliminative criticism. Yeah, that's a short summary, but yeah, sure. It's very incomplete, like highly informative and so far have stood up to criticism. Like those are good points, but you need more criteria. And Popper does mention other criteria at other times. And then I think there's more that can be added, but like what he says from all the different places is pretty good. It's enough to get you started and to see that like CR is a good idea that's worth pursuing. Okay, Popper's concept of corroboration is designed to measure the manner in which conjectures are subject to. Okay, yes, I'm not a big fan of corroboration. Like it was a good try in various ways. Like you can't blame him for it. It's completely a reasonable thing to try. And it was a bit similar in various ways to previous philosophy. It was like a way where he is not as different from his predecessors as he could have been, as I am. This I take as a crucial thesis, that there's a rational basis for preferring one to another. If that is correct, Popper can legitimately claim to solve the problem around. Yeah, okay. So yeah, basically this is summary stuff and it is okay. And he did not end up disagreeing with that part where I thought he was setting up to disagree with it. It was apparently just summary. Okay, later Salmon writes, I must confess to the feeling that we've been given the runaround. We begin by asking how a science can possibly do without induction. We are told the aim is to arrive at the best explanation. We ask how to tell whether one theory is better than another. We are told it depends on the comparative ability of stand-ups. Okay, sure. When we ask whether this mode of evaluation does not contain some inductive aspect, we are sure. Well, what inductive aspect? Like, define in your terms, define induction, like, and be really specific about where the inductive aspect is. Um, like, if you would give an example of an induction, with full details, and specify how it deals with things like the problem you were talking about up here, the infinity one. Right? How does induction deal with the infinity of generalizations compatible with the observational evidence? What's induction's answer to that? Unless you tell me how induction answers that, then I don't see how induction is like a relevant thing that you're going to think is coming up. Because you don't have any way that induction works unless you can answer that. So he needs to answer the issue he already understands from an inductive perspective. And then only if induction has an answer to that problem could you think that anything that works might include induction. And only when you're like specific would you be able to see if Popper's answer to that problem is similar to the inductive answer or not. You'd have to specify the inductive answer to compare and see whether they're similar or have overlap. Okay, so we are this far. Are assured fully in terms of comparative success up to now. What else would it be made in terms of, like, as opposed to what? He's skipping too many steps. We're assured it's X, and then it should be we're assured it's X, not Y. Like, what is the thing we're excluding or denying? He doesn't quite say it, so it's hard to follow. He should be clearer. All right, but since this evaluation is made early in terms of past performance, and it escapes inductive contamination because it lacks predictive import. No. No, we are making predictions using theories and stuff. Anyways, what is inductive contamination? The issue here is he doesn't know what he means by induction. He doesn't have a coherent theory of induction that addresses the basic problems with induction. If you try to figure out, if he focused on getting his own house in order, he'd understand Popper better. When we then asked how to select theories for purposes of rational prediction, we were told we should prefer the theory which is best suited. In light of our critical discussion, appears the best so far. So this is a bit of a vague answer, but I like this one. Like, I think this is the right answer. The right answer is we have a critical discussion and then we make a judgment. That's it. Use criticism and use judgment. You have to use your intelligent judgment and use criticism to improve it, and then you might screw up, and if so, further criticism and judgment and discussion can improve things. We learn by critical discussion, plus critical thinking, plus judgment. Plus brainstorming, if you want to throw that in separately. So best tested, I'm not a big fan of. Like, there's some value in that. It's worth understanding. It was a worthwhile attempt to figure something out, and it's not worthless, but I think it's not really correct. So I would just drop that and use the second one. So we don't need it. We've got this other one. This one right here is the right answer. It's not. It doesn't give you all the details, but it's the sketch of the right answer. It's not wrong. It is the broad category of what you do. Even though we have been explicitly assured that testing and critical discussion have no predictive import. Well, they have no predictive import directly because they help us evaluate the generalization, and the generalization has the predictive import. So they indirectly have predictive import because they help us with prediction. Popper tells us, I do not know of anything more rational than well-conducted critical discussion. See, Popper's so wise. He knows. He didn't say, I don't know anything more rational than corroboration. He said then well-conducted critical discussion. He thinks critical discussion is key. He knows a lot. He's a good guy. He did not just say it's all about corroboration and testing and empirical refutation. He knows critical discussion is key. So wonderful, great, agree. I fail to see how it could be that rational to judge theories proposes a prediction in terms of a criterion is emphatically claimed to be lacking in predictive import. Because it's a two-step process. He's just not that bright, I think. Sorry. Alright, let's see what Alan says. There are a lot of problems and misconceptions. Weber criticized induction. Possible. Right, because there are an infinity of observations compatible with an infinity of theories compatible with the observations. How do you pick one? How does induction pick between them? Like he's complaining that he's like wondering how Popper solves this problem. Like, okay, but did you think about how you solve it? Maybe he does in his book. I don't know. I mean, this guy's written a book in multiple papers, so maybe he has some sort of attempt to answer that somewhere. Like, I assume there's something wrong with it, but maybe he tried. So you have to be careful blaming someone for like not even addressing a problem when you haven't read much of their stuff. He may have tried to address it somewhere. Okay, yeah, agree. I don't know. I found it unclear if that's what he was asking for. It's certainly possible that that's what's motivating it. Like I wouldn't really say there's a reasonable interpretation, but I think he clearly said this. Um, so I don't know. Yeah, well, if you don't know, then it's like it's wrong to believe it, and you can make meta theories like should I act on an unknown theory in this particular case? And the general answer is no. Don't act on a theory that you haven't been able to reach a conclusion about because you have no knowledge that it will work. Um, However, if it's like you have 2 seconds left and your life's on the line and you have no other ideas, then maybe you act on it. So it's like, should I act on a very risky theory in that kind of extreme situation without a better option? Then sure, yes. So you can always evaluate something. There, that was a tangent. In the case where you don't know. Right. Yes, your ignorance doesn't tell you if you can't evaluate something, if you can't reach a conclusion about whether it works, you can't say it's like 50% likely to work or 70 or whatever. There's no actual way of objectively creating numbers like that. In certain limited circumstances, you can do that as a rough approximation. But it's not fundamental to epistemology. It doesn't quite work. It's just like a loose shortcut approximation of Popperian epistemology in some cases via like a long chain of proxies and explanations and stuff that I don't want to go through. So like people do something that looks kind of like this, and the thing they're doing is a loose approximation of something that can work. And they often make mistakes, but it's not 100% worthless because you can interpret it as a shortcut plus approximation of Popperian epistemology to some extent. Anyways, it depends on like the type of ignorance. Like so I forgot where I've heard this, but there's this phrase that there's known unknowns and there's unknown unknowns. The unknown unknowns are like the really super mysterious ones where you just don't know anything about them. And for those, like basically what Alan's saying is correct. And then there's the known unknowns where you don't like have enough knowledge, you don't have specific knowledge, but it fits into like categories you're familiar with. So let's take a sports analogy. Like you're a football coach, and so football has all these different plays. Like there's passing plays and running plays, and then there's different ones where people go in different directions and shit. Um, so like a known unknown would be, um, should we do this play where I haven't actually read it yet and worked out whether it's a good play or not? You can say, well, Joe made it, and it is a football play, and it looks like a football play. Like, at a glance, I saw that it had the right number of players on the team. You know, nothing was egregiously wrong looking at a glance. It looked like a football play, just haven't figured out how good it is. Then you can say maybe it has a 40% chance of working as just a very, very loose approximation because you know what type of thing it is, you know who made it, you know how good a strategist they are, you know in general how good new plays tend to be that reach the quality bar that your assistant coaches will bring them up, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So you can make like sort of a loose approximation. And you can imagine like if my assistant coach brought me 10 plays like this and I glanced at them but hadn't yet evaluated them, um, how many times out of those 10 would the play be good? And maybe it'd be 4 out of 10. And maybe he's brought you 100 in the past and 40 of the 100 were good. Like, so you can make sort of approximation. That's an example of an approximation. Because, and the reason you're able to make the approximation is because it's not just unknown and ignorance that's going on. It's because you know a lot about it. You know what type of thing it is. You know various properties of it. And that's what lets you make like a quick guess. Whereas with an unknown, like the whole thing about those is you just don't have information. They're things you haven't thought of in advance. You're not familiar with them. Like football plays are a category that even if you don't know about this specific play, you know how the category works. Whereas like things you haven't thought of, you just can't say anything about. You can't put them in a category and derive any properties about what they're like. You just know nothing. It's like the fear of the unknown that it's like with disasters, like we know about hurricanes and earthquakes and fires and floods, tsunamis and coronaviruses. Those are known unknowns where like, you know, if there was going to be a new virus or flood or whatever, we wouldn't know in advance exactly how bad it would be or what the various characteristics would be. But we'd know like the general range of outcomes that could happen. We know sort of like what the bigger tsunamis look like and what the smaller tsunamis look like and what the average is and so on. You can make like some partial predictions if you hear it's a tsunami but you don't get all the details because you know what sort of thing that is. Whereas unknown unknowns are like, what if there was some sort of disaster that we just literally haven't even thought of it yet? We don't know what it would be, right? That could it could be anything. It could be, you can't predict how bad it would be. An unpredicted disaster that no one had ever thought of could do any amount of harm. Like you just have no idea. You can't say a damn thing. But I think differentiating between that like partial knowledge, the known unknowns, versus the unknown unknowns, the known knowledge is important. Anyway, that was a pretty long tangent. People should actually state arguments and assess them rather than try to muddle through it. Yeah. Yes or no is good. Radio songs. That's a word I haven't seen before. That's interesting, by the way. Like, I have reasonable confidence that I've never seen that word in my entire life. Not like 100% sure, but reasonably confident. I don't think I've seen it before, ever. But, like, I don't remember my whole life, you know? But I have a decent sense of whether I've seen a word before or not. Like, certainly I could have seen it when I was 6 and had no idea what it meant and moved on and forgotten. But that's pretty unlikely, and, like, I have no memory of seeing it. I think, like, my lack of memory of seeing it is, like, pretty meaningful, even though it's spanning a long time period. I have a pretty good idea of, like, what my vocabulary is, what words I'm familiar with. Like, I think that's something that's, like, remembered pretty well. It's a big list. So there are, like, thousands of words that I've seen before. And it's interesting that I can have pretty good memory of that. But, like, if you ask me to memorize 1,000 digits of pi, I'd just be like, fuck you, no. Um, but, like, words are more complicated than individual digits. You know, this one has several syllables. Radiosons. So 4 syllables, I think. Unless the end is, like, pronounced. Probably 4 syllables. Right, so that's kind of like memorizing, like, 4 digits. Except there's more syllables than digits, so it's, like, even worse. The pi thing sounds like really boring, 1,000 digits of pi, but it also, I don't know, it sounds hard too. Like it sounds like it's hard in addition to boring. Like even if I wanted to, it sounds hard. I don't think it's like impossible. Like I could probably figure out how to do it, um, but it does sound quite hard in addition, apart from being boring, pointless. I guess remembering all the words is hard too. Like keeping your vocabulary in your head. I guess that's hard. That takes a lot of work. So maybe that's what's happening there. Like the pi one's hard and the word one is hard. The word one I did anyways. The word one has so much value. It's so useful to know thousands of words. It's like worth a massive, massive amount of effort. Then pi is like a somewhat lower amount of effort, 1,000 digits of pi, but still very large amount of effort. And then the payoff is very small. Like even if it's only 10% as much work, that's still enough work for me to be like, wow, that sounds terrible. Okay, that radio sounds. That's of interest. Well, Alan tells me what it is. I don't have to look it up, so that was nice of him. He knew that I didn't know that word. That is good. He is competent. Um, that's of interest in science. Attached to a balloon and set up into the sky to record atmospheric conditions, temperature, pressure, altitude, cosmic rays, and stuff like that. Okay, that makes sense. I can totally understand that. That wasn't that hard. The instruments on the weather balloons. Got it. You give me details, temperature, pressure, altitude, cosmic rays, other stuff. Sounds good. All right. Scientists who use it as observations for the radio sonde doesn't float with the balloon up into the atmosphere. Has to look at the readings and try to explain them by guessing about what's happening to the instrument. I assume they're like radioed back down to Earth. The radio sonde might be a hint on that one. Same token, same would be true even if the instruments were in front of a scientist on a bench lab. Yeah, observations are fallible guesses. This gets into the quote Duhem Quinn unquote problem that Popper wrote about in LSD before Quinn's paper, but by the way, I don't just because we talked about plagiarism for 2 hours, I don't think Quinn plagiarized Popper or that either of them plagiarized Duhem. I think all three people wrote their own ideas, and it was fine. And then uh, people just started calling it Duhem Quinn and like didn't pay enough attention to Popper, and that was a bit unfair. It wasn't a plagiarism thing, and Duhem didn't like do something wrong to cause it, or Quinn didn't, or maybe he did with like office politics of academia or something, and maybe he did something wrong of that nature. But I have no knowledge of him doing anything wrong of that nature. Anyways, Quinn was like more popular at the right time, or managed to get attention for his paper or whatever, and so he got his name on the thing. Even though Popper was first with some of the same ideas. But Quinn did not steal Popper's ideas. That was my point. Getting your name on it later can happen without plagiarizing, even if you're second, because people just choose to call it by your name, even though you're second, because they're careless or they like you or various reasons. Anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting compared to the plagiarism stuff. All right, more explanations. Okay, I'm not quite sure why Alan wrote this paragraph, but I agree with what it says. Oh, okay, I should reread the first sentence. Salmon says this we must. Yeah, no, I don't find this super clear. Anyways. Um Okay, so now we got practical. This thing is called rational prediction. But now there's a point about practical prediction. Okay, so Salmon himself says practical action. This is quite vague. I don't like Salmon's quote. Anyways. Sure. Okay. Copy as plain text. Okay. What? Oh, it tabbed up there? Somehow after this field, when I tabbed, the next field was up the select month or whatever. Not either of these checkboxes and not post comment. Okay, notify me of new comments by email. Yeah, you have to do this on every post. Like, you can't just subscribe to all the comments. Reminds me. Okay. Oh, Internet Rules has been posting here. Oh yeah, the Play-Doh one I saw. Okay, so this is a comment that I'd missed. Despite signing up for notifications on... I try to comment on most of Alan's blog posts and sign up for notifications. Because he rarely gets any other comments and they're actually pretty good posts that are like worthwhile. So since I usually try to write one comment, I end up subscribed to like almost all his posts, but I still missed this one. Maybe it's on an old post or something. When's this post from? 2017, February. Yeah. A 3-year-old post. That's why I wasn't comment subscribed to it. Oh, it's spam. This is spam. Alan should delete this. I will tell Alan, I guess. Okay, Alan has been notified that there's spam on his blog. Alright, now we go back here. And then I was gonna copy as Markdown. Markdown works on my blog. And then I was gonna go to Theory 1595, this one. And I was gonna put it here. Okay. Uh, So I spent close to an hour on this post, like 50 minutes or so. Okay, yeah, this stupid DDoS stuff is annoying, but it should it's posting it and then it's redirecting and it has to do this twice, and then it should actually work. Yeah, so you can see how annoying it is to get DOSed. They shouldn't DOS me, it is criminal. But you can still comment. This is the salmon paper, Ellen, blah blah. Alright, I'm not gonna look at the trees because I don't want to talk a lot more. Maybe I'm just gonna call it a day. Yeah, that's 3 hours. I'm done later.